Hey guys and welcome back to my channel. This is part 2 of What If Naruto Was the Last Shinto Gods in Percy Jackson. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and also go and support the author, link in description. For the 100th time since the Trojan War started, two opposing waves of buckling bronze clashed against each other. Locked shoulder to shoulder with foe and friend alike, this was more a battle will than skill. Swords flashed, and metal shrieked as the fighting reached its fourth grueling hour. Fatigue had long since settled in. At this point, intimidation tactics subsided, and combat happened in total silence, with only the groans of the dying fracturing the tense quiet. Naruto found himself at the center of it all. Sweaty and convinced that he tasted bronze in the air, the godly one tried to look out for his men, but this environment was pure chaos. His potential worry was dashed by the cruel reality of a sword coming his way. Naruto avoided the stab at his armpit and retaliated by hilting his one-handed blade in his attacker's stomach. I'm sorry. Naruto didn't even have the chance to hear his sword come free because it was time for his line to change with the row waiting in reserve. Switch. With impeccable maneuvering built over the last decade, the forces from the Aegean performed a coordinated line shift that put their freshest fighters at the front. Now that Naruto had a moment to himself, he wiped the sweat from his brow and sighed tiredly. His wasn't a physical exhaustion but rather an emotional and mental fatigue. He was tired of worthless deaths, both Trojan and Greek. Helen was secure. This was nothing more than pride-driven slaughter. Naruto. The familiar sound of his right hand's voice calmed Naruto's growing frustration. What Atalanta planned on sharing with him was stonewalled when Naruto grabbed her weapon arm and scrutinized the limb intently. What are you doing? Her half-hearted attempts at wrenching herself free were fruitless. If anyone else dared to touch her like this, Atalanta would have hacked off their arm. But not Naruto. He had earned her trust. While Atalanta quelled her distrustful nature, Naruto fought off his gut reaction, which wanted to use his divinity to heal her faster. Instead, Naruto settled for pulling out a roll of bandaging from the pack attached to his hip. You really should take better care of yourself. He grumbled before biting off some wrapping and carefully fastening it to Atalanta's injured arm. Atalanta had a grunt forced out when Naruto yanked the bandaging tight. But the eternal maiden of Arcadia wouldn't give up easily. Her stubborn streak reared its head despite knowing Naruto was right. To her, it was easier to ignore the pain when focusing on repaying the trust Naruto placed in her as a leader of men. I have responsibilities to take care of. The rest can come after that. Her response was so Atalanta that it left her battlefield superior rolling his eyes. Naruto pulled the binding extra tight to reinforce the idea that she wasn't invincible. Pain didn't care about good intentions. Yes, a capable woman like her didn't need someone looking after her, but a little help never hurts. Good. With that taken care of, why don't you share what you wanted to say? Naruto would make a good husband. Where a traitorous thought like that came from, Atalanta couldn't say. However, she wasted no time in squashing the notion. Perhaps many years ago, the idea of having a loving husband was something she wanted. But that was the past. Now she was a proud warrior. A deadly huntress. Clearing her throat and putting everything else behind her, Atalanta delivered her report. Our losses have been minimal, and we're making steady progress toward Troy's walls. The surrounding villages have provided what we require. By force. For morale, Naruto chose against mentioning how often they failed to overcome those same walls. And since he doubted this would suddenly change, Naruto kept his thoughts to himself. How about the other thing we talked about? Is there anything new on that front? Memories of her recent failure pushed an annoyed frown to the forefront. Shaking her head, the uncrowned huntress shared what little she knew about the situation. There hasn't been anything out of the ordinary. I've also tasked a few men to look for anything suspicious. They believe they're searching for Trojan infiltrators, not the schemes of an envious king. Speaking of Menelaus, I'm certain his brother is helping him in this endeavor. Agamemnon and Menelaus, huh? Naruto's deep sigh forced his purple eyes closed for a moment. He stayed that way for a handful of moments while contemplating things before he looked out at the mass of men who, like him, were enjoying their respite from the fight. This is difficult enough without having to worry about an enemy hidden in our ranks. Unlike almost everyone on both sides, Naruto defined his worries differently. He wasn't afraid of dying, not one bit. He worried that if his true nature was revealed, it'd bring down a paranoid Zeus and result in a death toll that made this war look like a bad joke. The potential for destruction sent a chilling shudder down the relatively young Cammy's spine. That was the nightmare scenario. It was best not to think about it too much. Let's get some water and get off our feet. Finding the idea agreeable, Atalanta nodded as a shout froze the entire Greek half of the battlefield. The Trojans are retreating. Push. Advance. Forward. The mortals let the ground shake with the ferocity of their victorious roar. Naruto didn't share their boundless enthusiasm. His sixth sense told him something was coming their way. Atalanta was perceptive enough to see the subtle change in Naruto's demeanor. Naruto. Is something wrong? That's when all hell broke loose. Like vengeance from a wronged god, a sea of arrows rained down on the Greek force with terrifying accuracy. Men died in droves before they could blink. Naruto's lightning-fast reflexes saved him and Atalanta, who Naruto pulled to his chest and under his shield. Both of them could do nothing but watch in muted horror as men were mowed down by the hundreds. The Greek warriors were far more prepared when the second and third waves of arrow fire dropped upon them. A ready defense prevented more deaths but couldn't stop wounds from being inflicted on the army. That's when a mortifying hidden aspect of the arrows revealed itself. Because those golden-tipped projectiles carried something far worse than death. It started with their mortal bodies shaking uncontrollably and dry-heaving galore. Then their skin withered to an unsettling shade of black. Pain, unlike any other, clutched their very souls. Grown men hardened on the battlefield were brought to their hands and knees. Hell, help me. I don't want to die. I've got you. Take my hand. Hauling up his friend, he quickly realized the sickly one was little more than dead weight walking. Once he finally got his friend onto his feet, the helpful man was rewarded with a cough going off in his face. Flinching slightly, he freed a hand to wipe his face, but when his hand came into his line of sight, he saw the same black splotches. What in the world? The panic made him drop his ally. Now all he could do was stare at his decaying limb in horror. They have plague arrows. Everyone back to the siege camp. And whatever you do, don't touch the infected. Under Naruto's instruction, the retreat began in earnest. In one merciless attack, the Greek war march was turned back. The atmosphere around the Grecian lords was understandably tense. The unprecedented reversal of fortunes left the collective group stunned. Even among the leadership, it was some time before one of these illustrious men found the inner resolve necessary to ask what everyone was thinking. What happened back there? His despondence awakened something in his fellows. Some showed their despair outwardly, while other lords lashed out in anger, like the bald man who answered the rhetorical blanket question. We know what happened. The better question is, how did this happen? We were winning. Gather your spirits, countrymen. This mishap was nothing more than pure chance. An unprecedented stroke of luck and nothing more. The Trojans won't pull it off again. We mustn't waver in the face of adversity. It's time to fight. Sensing the potential for a total collapse on the horizon, Menelaus tried rousing resistance in his peers. It didn't have the kind of effect he hoped for. Instead of coming together, further dissension and doubt spread. Voices piled together, never louder than a whisper but somehow deafening. Though the words differed to a man, the general idea was the same. Perhaps this is a sign from the gods. Perhaps our war is no longer just. Should we not take our men and return to our farms and families? The years have been long and hard on us all. From his place in the back, Naruto watched as some of the most steadfast warriors in the known world faltered when faced with the opportunity of returning home to their loved ones. And he didn't blame them for reacting the way they did. Apparently, Agamemnon didn't share Naruto's empathy, seeing how he tried picking up from where Menelaus' attempt at a speech ended. My brother is correct. This was an unforeseen and tragic setback. However, we have not lost. We are not lost. It has taken many years, but we are finally on the precipice of a great victory. Turning away now would shame our families for generations. It would be the same as admitting our inferiority to those disgusting Trojans. Is that what you want for you and your families? The overall war leader counted on eliciting more of a reaction with his appeal. What he got was an open challenge of his authority. Bah, you've promised it all, Agamemnon, but deliver failure and defeat. Is this truly about our legacy or your own wounded pride? Everyone in the assembly area saw Agamemnon's face flushed a furious red. In his rage, a pair of veins also popped out on the sides of his head. How dare you? You'd willingly go back on your sworn oath to be here. Oath. Helen is free. The oath has been settled. What keeps us here is trust, and I don't trust you to get the job done, not anymore. If you don't give me a good reason, I'll take my men and go home. Enough was enough. This Grecian lord reached his boiling point and wasn't willing to back down. It didn't matter if he was right or wrong. This needed to be said for all to hear. Until now, Naruto had gone under the radar in the meeting, but that changed when Agamemnon singled him out with his gaze. Naruto realized Agamemnon planned on trying to use him for his reputation. How he'd do it was the real question. Fortunately, a timely arrival rendered the point moot as they stole the spotlight. My lords, I have discovered the source of the plague. If I might have a moment of your time. With short and wavy sand blonde hair sitting atop a warrior's body, Naruto didn't take long to identify the newcomer. This was the man they called Achilles. Finally, someone with some good news. Go on, speak your mind. Naruto spared Agamemnon only a glance before turning to hear what Achilles had to say. You dare smile in our faces when you are the source of our woes. Despicable. There wasn't one person present prepared for such a violent piece of vitriol. It almost caused those gathered around Agamemnon to forget about the accusation. Almost, but not quite. The pressure exerted on him by many judgment-filled eyes spurred Agamemnon into a hasty response. However, emotion quickly proved that haste didn't equate with well-thought-out answers, especially for one held to the standards of kingship. Watch your tongue. You forget who you are speaking to, Achilles. Achilles was a man who solved his problems with action. But he wasn't a stupid man. He understood that this was a battle he could only win if his words were as sharp as his trusty spear. I have forgotten nothing. In fact, thanks to someone quite wise, I have found something. Thanks to Lady Thetis, your crimes have been illuminated. Listen and listen well. Agamemnon has abducted a child of Apollo and unleashed the sun god's fury. We must return her before this man's pride dooms us. It took everything Agamemnon had and then some to not pull his hair out. Everything he sought to build for himself was coming undone. He felt the whispers and silent accusations being directed at him from the onlooking crowd of his peers. This preposterous slander meant to usurp me. Do not pay this fool any mind. I implore. Apollo isn't just the sun god. He has domain over medicine as well. If anyone could unleash the plague on our men, it's him. Naruto's reminder of what Apollo represented earned him a savage glare from Agamemnon, something Naruto shrugged off. In the meantime, the doubt-laced whispers grew louder. Very well. I shall return what I've taken, but not without compensation. If memory serves, you have taken a maiden for yourself, Achilles. Her name was Briseis, correct? She will be mine, and Apollo's wrath will be abated. I assume there aren't any objections. The king flexed the cunning that got him this far to back Achilles into a corner. If the famous hero refused, he discredited himself. But if Achilles accepted, then Agamemnon got what he wanted. It was the perfect revenge play. Bastard. Do what you wish, but from today forth, the Myrmidons won't raise a sword in the name of your cursed cause. Exploding from the tent in a fury, he left a crowd of kings speechless. Naruto wasn't nearly as slow. He silently followed behind the storm that was Achilles. He waited until Achilles' march took them a fair distance before calling out to the fighter. Wait. Hold on. Achilles mistakenly thought a conniving king was on his heels. That's why he whirled around with a face set in fury. However, upon spotting Naruto's unmistakable red hair, he took a calming breath and welcomed Naruto with a smile. Forgive my earlier outburst. That man is infuriating. So candid was his response that Naruto couldn't help but throw his head back and laugh. Even an enraged Achilles had a mind to choose his words. Naruto doubted he'd be so kind when describing their shared antagonist. Don't worry, I won't hold it against you. I'm Naruto. Achilles. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance properly. The two exchanged their greetings over a firm handshake. Upon releasing Achilles' hand, Naruto had to ask the man one burning question. So you're done fighting? After a moment, which felt more like 1,000, Achilles made his choice. He nodded his head with some difficulty. Yes. I won't battle under the banner of someone like Agamemnon. I will pray every night for a chance to regain my lost honor, but this is my path. His warrior nature wanted a fight. However, Achilles refused to fight for the wrong cause. That'd make him no better than a sellsword. Naruto understood where Achilles was coming from. Hell, he actually approved of what Achilles was trying to do here. You're willing to stand by your convictions. I can respect that. Thank you. I have heard good things about you as well. We'd be honored to have you in the Myrmidons. Your addition would leave us better. Achilles made his offer with a dash of genuine praise for someone who had more than earned it in his eyes. I appreciate the offer, but I have men who still want to fight and look to me for leadership. I won't leave them behind. The fight will start anew in the coming days, and I need to be there for my men. A true leader. Then I'll wish you luck and victory in your future battles, Naruto. May we meet again. He was disappointed, but Achilles fully understood the burden of leadership and Naruto's desire to uphold the trust bestowed upon him. At a glance, Paris didn't come across as capable of starting a war. He was an average man with a somewhat handsome face but nothing extraordinary. From being some no-name shepherd to a prince, Paris's rise was nothing short of meteoric. However, none of his past experiences readied him for war. Paris of Troy was no warrior. And as it were, the tension of sitting around and doing nothing was getting to him. How long do we wait like this? We wait for as long as it takes. That's what a truce means. Unlike his supposed brother, Hector had the demeanor of a warrior. He was the definition of calm, even with an opposing army facing him down. Hector did this by thinking about his family and empowering himself with memories of them. The quiet lasted for 30 seconds flat before an anxious Paris couldn't stand the pressure. He looked pointedly at Hector, who stood on his right side. When he gazed upon his brother's confidence, Paris's irritation swelled. But this time, it also came with self-directed shame. I can't take this anymore. Do something, Hector. Crush them already. Hector wasn't the only person laughing, but he laughed the loudest. Snort. You're no fresh-faced brat. You've spent 10 years among us. I think you know how we do things. If you want to make something happen, do it yourself, Prophet Prince. Every muffled snicker aimed at him tore a new hole in Paris's flimsy confidence. Swallowing a petulant growl, he gnashed his teeth and clenched a fist. He would show these Trojans that he belonged. He would prove that he was everything Lady Aphrodite claimed when whispering in his ear. Fine. I don't need your help. Get out of my way. Move. Their somewhat good-natured ribbing became a suffocating worry when Paris marched toward the enemy alone. What would happen to them if they allowed Paris to be harmed doing something stupid? Are you sure this is wise, Hector? The king won't be happy if he learns what happened here. Hector's scrutinizing gaze stayed steady on Paris's back, but he did spare a moment to reply to the question. I am unsure why Paris is perpetually spoiled. However, I won't be part of it. If Paris wants a place among us, he will earn it. He'll earn the right of command through combat with the enemy. Hector didn't think Paris was worth it, but he couldn't openly defy his father's wishes. The lonesome Trojan stood alone in the gap between both sides, placing Paris firmly in the no man's land between either force. Clearing his throat, the unexpected prince tried projecting his voice to friend and foe alike. He'd be damned if he let himself go unheard. I am Paris of Troy. I demand the fool stupid enough to take what's mine to step forth and face me. Paris planned on striking fear, but the battle-tested warriors took one look at Paris and saw through his bluster for the smokescreen that it was. Instead of cowering, they openly laughed off the prince's attempt at intimidation. Who do you think you are to mock me? I said. We heard you the first time. I'm the one who freed Helen from your abduction plot. What do you want? The entirety of the Greek army cleared a path to let Naruto through out of respect. His measured movements took Naruto toward Paris until they stood 5 feet apart. This was Paris's first time seeing the fire-haired Greek demon. As such, the unusualness of Naruto's appearance caught the former sheep herder off guard until he snapped out of his momentary funk. You. Return Helen of Troy to me. She belongs to me by right, and I won't stop until I have her. Where Paris was anxious, Naruto stood confidently. When Paris breathed threats, Naruto spoke calmly. Where Paris battled for his personal greed, Naruto fought for others. This difference couldn't be more pronounced. That's why Naruto cared little for Paris. When he looked at this mortal, Naruto saw a snake. And he loathed snakes. And what right is that? Who gave away another's freedom to choose for themselves to someone like you? It was the fairest of all, Lady Aphrodite. Invoking the goddess name seemed to be a source of strength for Paris. The mere mention of Aphrodite's name straightened his spine and squared off his shoulders, but Naruto remained unimpressed with what he saw as showmanship. Pointless theatrics. Yeah, that's not gonna fly with me. Try again, shepherd. Naruto saw every panicked thought through Paris's eyes. The mortal hadn't counted on being denied, and now he clutched at straws before he was humiliated in front of the entire war. A duel. The winner keeps Helen. The incognito deity cocked an eyebrow. This was some of the worst negotiating Naruto had ever partaken in. And this coming from a man who worked amongst uneducated peasants daily. Your public speaking needs some work. Helen is where she belongs. More importantly, Helen is where she wants to be, so you offer nothing. I refuse. Peace spoken. Naruto was about to return to his men when Paris shouted an offer Naruto couldn't refuse. Then take me if you win. That's what you Greeks came for. You want revenge. Claim victory and claim your revenge in the same moment. If he were honest, Naruto didn't crave revenge. Justice. Yes, but not their blind revenge. However, if he turned down this duel, it'd result in open mutiny and scorn. Saying yes was simply the lesser of two evils, so with his hand forced, the divine child of Amaterasu complied. Have it your way. Your path of uncontrolled harm ends here, Paris of Troy. A general chatter from both sides encroached on the ears of both contestants. Naruto remained focused on the task at hand, but the less experienced Paris found himself listening to the Greek commentary more than he should. Crush him, Lord Naruto. The Trojan has no chance against Lord Naruto. Paris of Troy is a bigger fool than I thought. Everyone get ready to assist Lord Naruto. The Trojans might attack him after he kills the baby-faced fool. The flurry of disparaging comments played on repeat in Paris's mind. Each remark put more fuel on the flames of his rage. Eventually, the narcissistic prince finally lost control and flourished his spear with a shout. Enough waiting. Fight me and die, Achilles. Loading up on his back foot, Paris chucked his weapon at Naruto with all his might. 1. Naruto quickly deduced the spear wasn't going to reach him. But the fire-haired general had other plans. The Solarborn walked into the projectile's range and snatched the weapon out of the air without breaking stride. Naruto broke the spear over his thigh, leaving the timbers behind him. And throughout it all, Naruto's deep, purple eyes stayed solely on Paris. The sight of Naruto breaking his weapon so effortlessly caused Paris to stumble a few steps back. He tried opening his mouth, but nothing came out. Instead, Paris shook his head and freed his sword with a growl. Hyah. Nimbly avoiding the blind hacking of Paris's untested blade, Naruto evaded the sloppy string of attacks. He did all this with his eyes closed and arms tucked behind his back. The humiliation of being handled in such a way wasn't lost on a seething Paris. The prince glared at Naruto, who still hadn't deemed his threat enough to draw a weapon. You fucker. Paris charged ahead like a bull. Naruto took his wrist as Paris went for a slash and disarmed him with a twirling throw. Paris skipped chest first across the ground while his weapon landed in the worn soil behind the red-haired god. Watching a groaning Paris attempt to pick himself up, Naruto could only shake his head. This wasn't a fight Naruto wanted. Paris wasn't someone who should be on the front line of a war, and it showed. I don't enjoy beating someone so painfully overmatched. Surrender and end this charade with some semblance of pride. Moving with the kind of intensity that battle inspired in armor could be draining for those unfamiliar with the art. Right now, Paris felt that fatigue gradually settling in. And the pain definitely wasn't helping things. Wheezing for breath, Paris haphazardly shed his chest plate and clawed out of the dirt. Throwing Naruto's offer for clemency aside, Paris rushed in for another chance at knocking Naruto down. But to Naruto and his hyper-developed senses this attack played out in super slow motion. With a suffering sigh fresh from his mouth, Naruto mumbled a few words to himself. Fine. I'll put a stop to this myself. Letting Paris in close, the scarlet-haired man caught the closed fist without trouble. Naruto felt nothing of the impact. However, the same couldn't be said for Paris. A howl of pain burst from the prince's mouth as Naruto's crushing grip popped his knuckles audibly. Stopped in his tracks, a swift kick to the inside of his knee left Paris in a subjugated position on his knees. Peering up through a glassy glaze of pain, he saw a cold indifference in Naruto's eyes and felt dread burrow deep in the depths of his soul. Naruto methodically pulled his kopis loose, forcing Paris to watch every lethal inch be hauled out into the open. Curling his fingers tightly around the wrapped hilt, Naruto had some last words for his hapless foe. This won't kill you, but it will hurt. Very badly. Because of how he was being held, Paris was blinded by the sun's reflection beaming off Naruto's sword. The darkness only made the expectation of pain worse. But instead of getting what he expected, Paris felt nothing. Almost hesitantly, the Trojan transplant opened his eyes to see what was happening. What stayed Naruto's hand wasn't something but someone. Upon sensing someone appear on his right side, Naruto was understandably surprised. His stupor continued when he laid eyes on a beautiful woman. Dare he say the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. Her silky blonde hair dazzled, and swirling blue eyes entranced him. Then she smiled, causing his brain to short-circuit. I'm sorry to interrupt your show, but I still need this one. Would you do me a favor and let him go, handsome? Please, Tilda. The bold beauty continued by running the back of her hand down Naruto's cheek, caressing it with her supple skin's tantalizing softness. It took more than Naruto wanted to admit for him to respond with a single word. Who? Delight twinkled through the woman's blue eyes, flashing like a falling star. I do love leaving a handsome man tongue-tied. By the way, I love what you have going on here. I think I'll take some of it for myself. With a simple snap of her fingers, the woman's golden hair ran red, and her blue eyes turned into a perfect imitation of Naruto's purple ones. Lady Aphrodite. In a strange twist of fate, Paris ended up helping Naruto with his big mouth. The name connected with her pretty face, and in a moment, Naruto realized he'd unwittingly walked headfirst into her charm. But now he was free, he'd be better prepared for the love goddess' natural wiles. This is an Olympian. Dangerous but not unbeatable. Good to know. The change in Naruto's eyes from dazed to determined was blatant. That's when Aphrodite backed up with a remorseful sigh. Her game was over for now. So she'd settle for her toy. Stepping lightly to Paris, a beaming Aphrodite placed her hand on the mortal's shoulder. Come along, Paris. My plans for you won't happen if you lose your head. And just like that, Aphrodite and Paris left the field in a flash of light. Naruto must have taken more time than he thought since the combative silence was dashed by the growing pain called Menelaus. The Trojans broke the terms of the ceasefire. All forces attack. Show these damned oath breakers no mercy. The entirety of the Greek invasion force rushed forth like a plague of locusts while Naruto was rooted in place. A few colorful descriptions of the petty king danced off his tongue. He couldn't hold it in any longer. Not only is there growing godly intervention, but now these pain in the asses are pushing their luck. For fuck's sake. It was you all along. I should have guessed. The purple-eyed god pivoted and found his expression scrunched in confusion. There Naruto found a bald man with a shaggy beard and a scar down his right eye. Despite cutting a distinct appearance, Naruto had no freaking idea who the bald man was meant to be. You were too perfect to be one of us. And who are you? The slow grating of his patience left Naruto with an atypically short fuse. What started with Paris became this clown. Soon, whatever restraint the peeved Shinto kami would leave him. Scratch that. It already had. This wouldn't end well for the brash mortal. My name is Dioned. Lady Athena granted me the gift of clear sight. No god in disguise can escape my gaze. I've forced Ares and Aphrodite to retreat. I even crossed weapons with Apollo himself. His emphatic introduction paused long enough for Diomed's gaze to narrow dangerously on Naruto. When Lord Agamemnon told me to examine you, I was doubtful. However, it appears he was correct. 2. I'm not dealing with this shit. Not today. Vanishing from under Diomed's watchful eye, Naruto appeared behind the stunned man. And before Dione had any idea of what was happening to him, a heartbeat passed, and the clear-sighted mortal's head fell from his shoulders in a shower of hot blood. You picked the wrong guy at the worst time. Naruto stared coldly at the crimson glaze leaking from his weapon. He only looked away when something moved in his peripheral. There he saw Atalanta looking at him with her mouth open in shock. Though hesitant to hear the answer, Naruto asked the obvious question. How much of that did you hear? What was that? What's going on here? That pretty much answered the question. She did indeed hear everything Dione blabbed in his extremely short monologue. Scratching behind his ear with his pointer finger, Naruto withheld a sigh. He planned on sharing his story with Atalanta eventually. This inconvenience just sped up the process. Annoying but not really a big deal. I'll tell you everything tonight at camp. First, we make sure our men don't get themselves killed in this stupid charge. To her credit, Atalanta didn't let herself get hung up despite the nature of the revelation. You're right. But I want those answers. Let's go. Another bloody battle in a long line of bloody battles was left in the past as night fell. The camp was quiet as the warriors recovered and mourned today's events. But off in Naruto's command tent, things were far from settled. With only a candle on the ground between them, Atalanta and Naruto sat in a tenuous silence. While the crimson-headed man gathered his thoughts, Atalanta waited for the story to begin. A crucial aspect of being a hunter was knowing when to observe and knowing when to strike. This pertained to aspects both on and off the battlefield. Being impatient wouldn't do any good. My full name is Naruto Omikami. It originates from a people ever further east than Troy. Memories from the time spent with Nyx and Chaos always came to the forefront when thinking about his family history. They were always good for a smile. That is until Naruto recalled stories about Amaterasu, those pushed longing into his soul. As someone privileged enough to see a fraction of the world's wonders, Atalanta wasn't shocked to hear about another civilization of people far removed. She wasn't ignorant enough to believe they were the center of the world. What's your home called? Naruto couldn't stop himself from smiling at the surprised look he garnered when he opened his eyes. The reveal of two golden pools as bright as the noon sun was a glimpse at Naruto's true nature. The mortals call our island nation Yamato. Man, myth, and God live side by side in harmony. It's a wonderful place. 3. Shaking off her astonishment and dragging herself away from the warm serenity of her friend's new eyes, Atalanta pushed herself back toward their discussion. You called them mortals. So you really are a god? Yes, that's right. I am the kami of heavenly light, harmony, and life. A silent form of strength swelled up in Naruto's heart. Perhaps it was pride, or maybe the unbreakable bond he shared with his birth mother through these domains. Either way, it was a priceless feeling to the last kami. They were bestowed upon me at birth, and I do my best to uphold them with the highest integrity. An abundance of questions emerged, but out of respect for the man who led her and many others through the horrors of war, Atalanta held her tongue. Her patience paid off when an opportunity arose. I have a few questions. First, what is a kami? You've said that word a few times like a title. Naruto nodded with a smile in play. He was pleased to know despite having many questions, she was still paying close attention to what he said. Kami is our word for God. Meanwhile, when I say Omikami, that's comparable to an Olympian. Atalanta knew Naruto was capable. She saw his skills on the battlefield firsthand. Add his domains onto that, and her beliefs were all but solidified. This brought the battle-ready maiden to her next question. I understand harmony and life. What about the other one? What is heavenly light exactly? Heavenly light allows control over any light that enters the heavens. This typically pertains to the sun, but I can also utilize the light emanated by other stars and the moon. However, I say kami of the sun for the sake of simplicity. Talking about these lesser abilities reminded Naruto he needed to spend more time training these facets of his domain once this grueling war was over. That sounds incredibly powerful, Naruto. Despite never meeting him, the former princess knew many of Apollo's stories. To think Naruto could perform similar feats with another bag of tricks up his sleeve was awe-inspiring. You must be one powerful kami. So why are you here? So far from your home? The assumption there was more kami, while unintentional on Atalanta's part, stung at Naruto's heart. He didn't let the dull ache show on his face. Naruto didn't want to cause her undue stress and guilt. I'm the most powerful kami because I'm the only kami you'll find. Sadly. A wince slammed into Atalanta immediately. Realizing what Naruto implied, she backtracked to offer her sincerest apologies. Gods, I didn't know. I'm so sorry. How does something like that happen? Morbid curiosity, though ugly, was a thing for a reason. The friendly smile on Naruto's face finally fell into a frown that showed a fraction of his unresolved pain. Once he calmed down a little, Naruto answered her question. However, it wasn't the reply she was hoping to hear. It's a long story and one I frankly don't have the energy to tell. At that moment, Naruto looked utterly spent. Reaching across the divide between them, Atalanta took Naruto's hand between both of her hands. She understood that exhaustion came in forms other than physical fatigue. The former Argonaut wanted to help Naruto through it. She figured being there for him would do the trick. Don't force yourself, Naruto. Not on my account. Her consideration helped put a smile that injected life back into Naruto's inherently expressive eyes. Turning away from the sore subject, Atalanta aimed for something more amicable. We've never talked about this before. What are your plans after everything's over? What does a god do next when the slaughtering is done? The absent look in his eyes came about from seeing something only Naruto himself could see. It wasn't a vision as exact as a prophecy. No, what he glimpsed were his hopes for humanity's future and the world at large. I want to help the world grow. Grow. Naruto broke free from whatever trance took him and sent his friend a more peaceful smile than any he'd shown before. Atalanta found it inspiring to behold. Yes, growth. I want humanity and the world to move forward. Innovation is the way of life, and I want life to flourish. That is my wish. Atalanta leaned back with an understated grin. The stern woman's eyes swam with an uncharacteristic showing of warmth. That fits you to a T, Naruto. Do you believe such grand change is even possible? In the gentle glimmer shed by the candle, the determined Shinto's eyes glowed with the strength of his conviction. These weren't baseless lip service. Naruto believed in this goal with every fiber of his being. I genuinely do, Atalanta. There will be dark times and mishaps. But what I learned from living with mortals is that failure makes them stronger. They won't give up, and I won't give up on them. If anyone can do it, you can. You have already inspired a change in me. Made me grow as a person. Wait, I have. Believe it or not, Atalanta needed to gather her courage. Telling Naruto what he did for her was something on Atalanta's list of things to do, but now she found herself oddly nervous. Before we met, I was a quiet shut-in who fought only for herself. No one trusted me, and I trusted no one in return. In the short time under your guidance, I became a leader who has won the respect of thousands. You gave me a goal. For that, I'll be forever in your debt. And if you asked any of Army, I'd bet they'd say the same. It was a unique experience for Naruto. The feeling of being so overwhelmed by praise that he found himself blushing. He went to laugh it off and downplay his personal contributions to Atalanta's development. The sudden rush of howling wind caught Naruto and Atalanta off guard. Tent flaps were blown wide open, and the candle was snuffed out. Naruto's tent remained upright thanks to the minor fade enchantment placed on it. What's with this sudden weather? With an arm up to her face to block her eyes from the blustering winds, Atalanta moved to the big tent's entrance. She just peeked out when a flash of light tore open the sky. Boom. A shatter of brutish thunder resulted in a ground-shuddering reverberation that knocked Atalanta off her feet. Hurrying over to Atalanta, Naruto helped her to her feet, something the dazed woman accepted readily. Wah! What happened? Winces came and went among the pairing as more thunder polluted the air. Dispersed within the chaotic booming drums were the screams of the warriors helpless to defend themselves against the heavenly strikes. Their anguished wailing left them in a horrified stupor. This isn't an ordinary storm. Her first instinct was to run out and help anyone she could. But really, how could she save anyone from lightning? This reeks of Zeus. I don't know if this will work, but it's better than doing nothing. Positioning himself at the center of his tent, Naruto lowered into a meditative position with his legs crossed under him and his hands facing upward. Naruto pulled a deep breath, shut his eyes, and tapped into his godly domain. Atalanta looked back to see her friend grimacing. She took a step away from the tent's whipping canvas flaps. The whisper that came next was unintentional on her part. What's happening out there? The king on Olympus is raining destruction upon us. I'm not good enough with lightning to protect the entire camp, but I'll do what I can to lessen the casualties. Hidden behind his eyelids were the jittery jolts of his pupils. They snapped back and forth, locking onto the lightning that Naruto painstakingly guided away from their intended targets. Turns out, it was more difficult than he imagined to catch and redirect. When Atalanta saw the look of focus etched on Naruto's grimacing face, she ate the question in mind. Instead, she sat across from Naruto and watched his body tremble and his hands clench tightly. 2 hours later, Naruto shot forward with a choked gasp. His upper body stood covered in sweat, and his formerly golden complexion looked pale like snow. It was only by Atalanta's steady hand that he didn't end up on his face. Are you all right? Still coughing up dry heaves, a shaking Shinto answered the calling of his name with a sluggish reply. I think it's done. Just thunder. Low on energy, Naruto slouched further into her stabilizing embrace. Should have done more. I can't extend my range further. I'd be too slow to catch the lightning. You did everything you could. Come on, you need to rest. Carrying what was essentially dead weight on her shoulder, Atalanta dragged Naruto toward his bedroll. They made it approximately a few steps before Naruto's eyes shot upward as he sensed something building in the upper atmosphere. Flinging himself from Atalanta's grip, much to her dismay, Naruto landed on his knees and put his hands out toward the sky. Grunting, the tired deity latched onto something only he could see. This isn't good. What is that thunder-touting asshole thinking? I don't understand. Zeus left a lightning bolt in the sky. It's big enough to wipe out half the camp. I'm trying to siphon some energy from it. Make it smaller. And Naruto began doing just that. Immediately, the strain of absorbing Zeus' primary power caused divine ichor to leak from the redhead's nostrils. Atalanta, not Naruto, wiped the blood from his face before it could reach his lips. After that, she asked a very fair question tinted with considerable concern. Won't he know you're up to something if you do that? I checked. The king's not connected to the bolt anymore. Someone must be distracting him. Naruto didn't know how right he was. Hera had taken her husband with her womanly wiles, inadvertently giving the young kami this chance. Speaking of distractions, could you ga? Naruto. Calling out his name in worry is all Atalanta could do as tendrils of shocking jolts raced across the redhead's skin, tightening his muscles painfully and making the electrocuted kami shake violently. Naruto, are you okay? Whatever. Don't touch me. Turns out, Zeus hit a secondary valve of power in the bolt. And when Naruto triggered the failsafe, the oversized lightning strike tried exploding with a cataclysmic impact. Unwilling to risk so many lives, Naruto took the consequences on himself. He became a lightning rod, grounding the excess energies in his body with agonizing results. The long hours of the night were spent with Naruto fighting a two-front war with the sky and his own body. Both were going well, but the effort it took to drain Zeus' fitful attack and repair his own body was taxing, to say the least. But finally, as the sun started rising and Naruto's vision darkened, the petty god's storm of destruction was mitigated. It's done. And so was Naruto, who passed out in Atalanta's arms, unresponsive to her calls. Achilles was dead. Hector of Troy was dead. During Naruto's time in a self-maintained sleep, the belligerent forces of Greece and Troy battled it out in the shadow of the city's walls. Many more men lost their lives, but none more consequential than Achilles and Hector. What made this battle different from the 100 preceding it was the cost. To their respective armies, both Achilles and Hector were invincible icons. Losing one was devastating. Losing both in the same battle was inconceivable. What was left behind were two armies with no desire to fight despite the wishes of their leaders. This shock created a suffocating gloom in the war camp. Naruto wanted nothing more than to rally the troops. But he was absent during the fight. What right did he have to speak about something he missed? Naruto hadn't brought it up, but since waking up, he noticed an air of resentment from some of the men. None of his subordinates treated him like a suspect, but those in other contingents didn't see him through the same rose-tinted glasses. This kind of suspicion created a suffocating gloom around the camp. Naruto wanted to rally the troops. But he was absent during the fight. What right did he have to speak on something he missed, even if it was for a good reason? So instead of sitting and stewing in the collective misery, Naruto went for a walk to clear his mind. Finding a quiet place wasn't difficult. Naruto ended up standing alone on an ocean-facing cliffside. The gentle grazing of salty wind on his skin worked an easygoing sigh from his slightly pursed lips. This perpetual bloodbath isn't getting us anywhere. We're wasting time and lives, but everyone is too damn stubborn to admit it. The idiocy of it all made Naruto's fire-warmed blood boil with frustration. A calm reply from an unexpected guest stopped the Sun Kami from lashing out at nothing to burn away his simmering anger. What of those who sacrificed everything? Do we not owe it to them to fight this war until the very end? Naruto held his tongue until the woman walked up beside him. A peak revealed a tan woman in elaborate armor over a fine wardress. With a spear running the length of her back, the gray-eyed woman stared expectantly, waiting for his answer. I don't discredit anyone who wants to fight for a fallen brother. However, I believe it's fair we ask how much we owe the dead. Should we sabotage life in the name of the lost? What about those waiting for these men to come back home? Fathers, husbands, sons, and brothers. We are more than sacrificial pieces. We are living beings with hopes and dreams. In times of war, men turn into beasts, and generals become gods. The stoic woman's comparisons drummed up a scoff from Naruto. His derisive response caused one of her finely kept eyebrows up. Do you hate them? You'll need to be more specific. The gods, do you hate them for allowing this to happen? Her curiosity, while blunt, wasn't entirely unfounded. Taking the question seriously, Naruto gave the idea a respectable amount of thought before he answered. Things aren't so simple. I can't say it's hatred. I'm disappointed the gods let this happen. I'm disappointed humanity allowed themselves to become weapons. I'm disappointed the world encourages pain through conflict. To pin the blame on any one thing is a gross oversimplification of what I feel. Naruto's thoughtful reply came as the man himself watched foam rise to the ocean's churning surface. Humanity's problems were always cut and dry in Naruto's mind, but the solutions were so complicated they might as well be impossible. An impressed glint wormed its way into the noble woman's steely stare. Her retort was the definition of pragmatic, turning her gray gaze to the ocean in front of them. One of these problems is easier solved than the others. How would you end this war if the supreme command was yours? What Naruto had to say wasn't revolutionary. However, it was needed information to set the scene. Our side won't stop until Troy falls. Yet, we won't get into the city through conventional means. These last years have proven that 10 times over. What would you say a warrior's greatest enemy is? Pride will do more harm than any weapon. It's destructive and poisonous, same for a mortal as a god. Naruto couldn't hold back his smirk. Talking with someone who understood people and war on a deeper level was refreshing for the hidden god. Naruto would be lying if he said he hadn't given the idea some thought in his downtime. That line of thinking popped up whenever Agamemnon or Menelaus managed to piss him off with their treacherous antics. If I had it my way, I'd exploit the enemy's pride. We'd make them think they'd won by leaving a prize on their doorstep. A meager offering won't. The redhead didn't feel too bad about cutting her doubts short since he wasn't done saying his piece. What if we present something not even the gods can ignore? Say something as magnificent as a wooden horse the size of Troy's fabled walls. A trickster's mischief pulled against Naruto's lips. He didn't have to look her way to see the thoughtful expression on his companion's face. Go on, imagine it. The sun banishes the night, and Troy looks to the horizon. Our army is gone, and in its place is a towering creature so awe-inspiring that only the gods could have created it. The calming sound of Naruto's voice continued painting a vivid picture, one word at a time. There were details left out, but only to keep the gist of his vision focused on his goals. Like total victory over the enemy. They think we have abandoned our aggression, but it's a ruse. A feigned retreat of the highest order. We'll position most of our army in the wooden beast's belly. Then once we are inside and their guard is down, we rush the city and end this war once and for all. That is brilliant. Her short pause allowed Naruto enough time to preen at the praise. The horse would need a secure place for construction to avoid tipping our hand. And the correct type of wood should support the weight of hundreds without compromising the structure's integrity. Setting the whole thing on wheels will trick the Trojans into thinking it was destined for them. Yes. It'll take a week to get the Trojan horse here. A brilliant plan indeed. It took a few minutes before the tactically superior warrior maiden worked free from her trance of thoughts and plans. Gray eyes dropped an intense stare on Naruto as her lips shifted into the first smile Naruto saw from the woman. If this plan works, I'll see you are rewarded for your service. The end of this war will be reward enough for me. With your mind perfecting my plan, I believe this will be the Trojan War's final act, Lady Athena. Naruto finally name-dropped Athena, letting her know he wasn't nearly as ignorant about her true nature as he previously indicated. This little trick almost made the stoic goddess laugh but instead won him a smirk. You knew who I was from the very start. Phrasing it as a statement instead of asking suggested Athena always knew that Naruto knew her identity. His response was a smooth shrug of his shoulders. There were just times when Naruto liked having fun by messing with others. He didn't see why gods should be exempt from his antics. Know your enemies and allies alike, right? Wisely spoken. Farewell. The curt dismissal was the best Naruto got from Athena, who vanished to take care of the logistics behind creating the Trojan horse. Hey, she wasn't too bad. A little tightly strung but nothing I can't deal with. The sky-reaching stallion made of sheared olive wood, born of Naruto's mind and Athena's ingenuity, was delivered to the loyal Achanes under a cover of night. Whether the sheer scale or its divine craftsmanship, which gleamed majestically in the sunlight, the Trojan horse commanded unrepentant awe from the mortals viewing it. Unsurprisingly, it became a popular attraction among the men drawn to the horse like flies to honey. Hey, are you sure this isn't some dream? I can't believe something like this is possible. It's unbelievable. I don't think I could make this, even in a dream. Despite feeling as massive as a mountain, the captivated man was almost afraid to blink. He felt like 1 second and this grand beast would return from where it came. I hear you. I've seen this thing 5 times already, and I'm still unsure how a creation like this is possible. The gods work in mysterious ways. In a mystical world where gods were linked with daily life, many saw this horse as a sign of their final victory against the Trojan scourge. On its lonesome, the wooden monument did more for their morale than any speech or warrior could provide. What do you think it's like in there? The first man asked with a nervous scratch at the back of his ear and the slightest of fidgets. For the first time, he grasped how tall the horse stood, and imagining himself being in there triggered his fear of heights. Totally ignorant of the festering doubts in his ally's head, the second fighter responded with the first things that came to mind. Dark. Probably hot when there are hundreds in there. Laughing nervously, the acrophobic man put up a front of false confidence in an attempt to save face. At least we have a good chance to finally end this bloody war. We're nearly there. Never thought I'd see the day. Honestly, it was difficult for him to imagine he'd survive when he watched many good men die in puddles of blood-saturated mud. But here he was, alive and kicking with the end in sight. A bittersweet smile played on his fellow soldiers' faces, echoes of a woman cradling her child stormed to the forefront of his brain. I know what you mean. When I sailed from home, I left a babe with my wife. Soon my son will be a grown man, and I'll have missed it all. When you meet your son again, you can proudly tell him how you and some of the bravest men shaped our history in a war that won't be forgotten. Both unaware men jumped in place when Naruto's familiar voice reached their ears. They were so enamored with the conversation started by the grand horse that neither realized their leader was behind them. Naruto ignored their surprise and kept walking until he created a fair amount of space between himself and the various groups of conversing men. Typically, Atalanta would wrangle the men. However, every unit in the army had been reduced for this final gambit to sell the idea of a retreat. Half in the horse and the other half sailing away from the mainland, that was the plan. Therefore, managing the 50 men left behind was on his shoulders. Sticking his fingers into his mouth, Naruto drew attention to him with one loud whistle. Gather up. Moving as ordered, the men on hand formed a half-circle before their leader. Unlike most of the army, who lost respect for Naruto because of his absence in the last battle, his men still held the utmost respect for him. Listen up. What I'm going to say, I'll only say it once. When we're inside those damn walls, there will be rules. Namely, if I catch any of you raping or plundering the people of Troy, I will put you to death. Naruto knew he had their undivided attention. He saw it in their posture. He saw how the easiness was replaced with the weariness of a battle-hardened unit of combat veterans. We won't become beasts. I lead men, not animals. Those people are the enemy, but they bleed the same as you or me. They live and love the same way we do. You will treat them with the same respect, or you'll meet my sword. If there are any problems with this, step up and do something about it. All 50 troops looked around silently. When they realized their comrades were doing the same, they uniformly turned to their leader and showed compliance. Understood, sir. The stone-stern visage on Naruto's face cracked beneath a proud smirk as he tasted the resolute cry from his men. He couldn't have dreamed of a better group of people to go into battle with. Rest up and enjoy your time. Tomorrow we take the fight to Troy. If we do this right, tomorrow we end this godforsaken war. A series of hailing cheers propelled into conversations about what they'd drink and do once everyone got home. Hearing them be so hopeful for the future left Naruto alone and smiling in the Trojan horse's sprawling shadow. Speaking of the wooden construct, Naruto took a moment and examined the giant creature in depth for the first time. And what he saw caused the young god to whistle in appreciation. Athena really outdid herself with this. It's somehow everything I imagined and then some. No one can resist taking this handsome beast for themselves, Trojan or otherwise. Their prideful greed will seal their fate and deliver our victory. Excuse me, my lord. Approached by a young woman dressed like a servant girl, Naruto was about to correct her assumption when she put a rolled-up paper in his hand. I have a message for you. It's urgent. Thank you. I'll read it as soon as possible. With Naruto's assurance, the young woman bowed her head and quickly made herself scarce. Once it was just him, Naruto loosened the fabric binding the paper and read the message's contents. Be careful. The enemy is on all sides. Chaos begets accidents. Naruto recognized the handwriting as Helen's right away. Having shared correspondence with Helen since her liberation, he became familiar with her penmanship. Despite being the definition of brief, Naruto understood the message well enough. Be careful meant danger was coming his way, which was understandable. The enemy is on all sides suggests his scorned king commander still hadn't forgiven Naruto for stealing his glory. Chaos begets accidents told Naruto that the siege was when Menelaus would strike. These things are never easy, but I'll be ready for whatever waits on the other side. That's a promise. The next day, sunset. King Priam, I beg you, return to the palace where we can ensure your safety. Let us send men to confirm the reports until then. There is no need to risk your health like this. This string of panicked shouts for a cease and desist came from a breathless, who scrambled like a fowl with its head chopped off. His panic was reasonable when one realized he chased after King Priam like one would a child on the loose. Luck wasn't on the honor guard's side. The king would not be deterred. Priam continued on, shooting through the city's paths in a flurry of finery up to the walls of Troy. The steadfast king stopped on the first step just long enough to look over his shoulder. No, I must see it with my own eyes. My family has sacrificed too much for me to do anything less. If he weren't busy sucking in oxygen, the panting man would have sent his king and lord an agape stare. Instead, he did his best to gather his breath. The links of his heavy armor clinked as he turned his gaze up the formidable city wall. And with a hand cupped around his mouth, he shouted up toward his brothers on the rampart. Move. Clear a path for your king. Blasting up the stairs as quickly as a man his age could reasonably move, Priam nearly folded himself over the teeth partitions at the top of the wall. His zeal to see this new marvel was unmatched at the moment. By the gods! What manner of beast is that? The frantic king latched onto the nearest guard, hoping he saw something during his shift here on the city's front line. You there, soldier, tell me what happened here. The movement was rushed, but the man forced himself into bowing. However, in haste, the nervous soldier forgot that he hadn't strapped his helmet. So when he flung his upper half forward, his headgear went flying. Wincing at the sound of his helmet clattering off the ground, he stammered a reply. The enemy forces pulled Pulled this horse to the gates, then sailed off, my king. The aging king stored away the information while keeping a sideways stare on the horse. Soon a slow blink flashed through the stress marks around Priam's eyes. They just left. That couldn't be right. All of them. Are you certain? An efficient nod came from the soldier man. Yes, sir. Every ship anchored on our shore left at the same time. We haven't seen a sign of the enemy since. Priam fell into a blank trance, blocking out every noise but the sound of his beating heart, which pumped faster by the second. Then a rumbling thought overcame him with the blunt force of Poseidon's fury. I don't believe it. It's over. Finally over. The war is won. We won. What once felt impossible was now an inevitable future, and with their proclaiming victory, the weary warriors raised their weapons high and screamed to the sky. Their roar became a singular vessel for every repressed emotion locked away for the last 10 years. Tears flowed as the victorious warriors shared embraces with each other in a moment where exhaustion sapped everything they had. However, King Priam had eyes for something bigger. This fine horse would become a symbol to last the ages here in Troy. Open the gates and bring in our prize. Tonight we shall have a festival around this great gift that the sons of Troy won through blood and bronze. Men moved to the whims of their monarch, but it still took the better part of 10 minutes for them to find enough rope that they could tie around the horse's front legs. As they found out, even with wheels, it took the strength of 40 to heave the mount into the heart of Troy. Hew. Ha. In. Because of pure bulk, Priam had plenty of time to reach ground level. From there, he watched the wooden creature stalk his way. Seeing its approach left the older man stricken with an awe he hadn't tasted since the birth of his first child. It's even grander up close. We shall call it Hector's stallion. Tonight we begin a month of celebration. The immediate response didn't come from the mouth of a relieved soldier or an enthused citizen. Who answered the call ended up being a distraught princess. No, no, no. Send the evil beast back. This is a trap, a ploy, a farce. It must go, or we'll drown in a sea of corpses. Death. Death to us all. The accursed horse must go. I've seen it. I've sworn I saw it all. Cassandra. What are you doing outside the palace? The stress is corrupting your mind. Please, my daughter, you haven't been yourself. Let's return to the palace and pray to Lord Apollo for good health. An abundance of pain was splashed across the old monarch's wrinkled face. Having already lost one precious child, Priam doubted his heart could handle losing his beloved daughter. It's why he spent his mornings and nights praying for his poor Cassandra. Troy's princess shook her head with the ferocity of a rabid bear, sending her braided black locks whipping across her face. No. I need an axe and a torch. This deadly gift must go. Quickly before the nearly frothing princess could run off, Priam put an arm around his daughter's shoulders and hugged the girl. When her face hit his chest, she cried quietly into Priam's chest, venting frustration and fear into her father's embrace. After stroking Cassandra's hair soothingly, Priam looked back to the men. Return to your barracks. Go ahead and turn in the armor and weapons. During that time, my courtiers will spread the word that the expenses for the festival will be paid by myself. Enjoy yourself. You've earned it. The silence was palpable to the point it became painful for some. When someone finally found the courage to say something, the bronze warrior spoke a whispered question. Do you think the princess is okay? We all handle loss differently. It's not our place to judge. But you heard the king, we have a party waiting to start. Now's not the time to drag our feet. A grizzled officer of Troy's army offered some perspective to his younger comrades. What the princess displayed wasn't uncommon over the years. So was the burden of living with the enemy at the gate for 10 years, not knowing if today was your last day. Many hours later, the men inside the Trojan horse learned what it meant to experience darkness. What sunlight there was didn't penetrate the arbor hide of the construct, leaving them struggling to adapt. Some handled the pressure better than others, but together it created a tense atmosphere that only a fool would ignore. How long are we going to wait like rats in a cellar? Let's get down there and finish the damn Trojans. Questions of this kind were commonplace over the last few hours. However, the plan wasn't going to change. They came too far as a collective to let nerves screw things up. No, we won't move until they're too drunk to fight back effectively. If we go too early, then we're all dead. Be patient. The time is coming. As the man appointed to lead this deadly mission, Odysseus brought his calm leadership to the men. The certainty behind words sobered the urge for action long enough to establish a tentative peace. All the while, tucked in the back, where it was the darkest, Naruto stood vigilant. He hadn't made a peep of noise since entering the belly of the beast. But that didn't mean he wasn't alert of what was happening around him. Naruto felt oddly calm about what came next. Maybe that was why it was so easy to link his breathing with the steady beat of his heart. And so, the godly man's mind began drifting. He thought about how far he had come. Years ago, before joining the war effort, he was a walking fire that relied on overwhelming force. No tactical thought, just an onslaught of raw firepower. And the crazy thing was, it worked. His enemies, while few, fell under the fury of his flames with one exception. Baleful yellow eyes leered maliciously through the fire. 8 heads connected to a gluttonous, engorged mass loomed large. Turning away from the snake he needed to skin, Naruto focused on something lighter. He thought about becoming friends with Atalanta. Correction, he thought about his first friend and best friend. Atalanta didn't treat him like a god. She scolded him for being stupid. And she celebrated with him when things went well. It wasn't an exaggeration to say Atalanta helped Naruto learn what it meant to be human. And when he thought about his second in command, naturally, Naruto thought about his men. He had been a warrior for as long as he could remember, always trying to get the best out of himself. It wasn't until Naruto had the lives of others put into his hands that he learned what real responsibility looked like. Life took a whole new meaning when the lives of others thrived or died by his choices. Speaking of poor choices, how could Naruto not mention the sad excuse for leadership currently residing on Mt. Olympus? What kind of pantheon let their subjects murder themselves for 10 whole years? Worst, they didn't just watch. The Greek gods and goddesses joined the bloodletting. It made Naruto's skin crawl. The time for reminiscing ended when Naruto's senses when the horse opened with a loud creak. What greeted him was the sound of shouts, screams, and cursing. Taking a final breath, Naruto exited the wooden steed last. His welcoming to Trojan soil came in the form of 3 inebriated guards, their shambling bodies hardly upright. Trust me, you don't want to do this. The Kami's calming gaze looked upon the shards of clay aimed in his direction unfazed. These men weren't just drunk beyond belief, they weren't adequately armed for a fight. They posed no threat to him. Go home and gather as many civilians as possible. Take them to safety before it's too late. Shut up and die. Greek. As expected from a drunk, the trio of men charged at Naruto with a distinct lack of coordination. The holes in their stances were so large Naruto didn't bother drawing his weapon. Even with a makeshift ceramic shiv coming at his face, Naruto didn't flinch. Swoosh. Naruto flowed around the outside of his attacker's hip, taking position behind him before the Trojan knew what was happening. Using his divine strength, Naruto took the guard's loose tunic and heaved him to the side like a sack of grain. The crunch of said man's head hitting his comrade's skull preceded both bodies hitting the ground. They were unconscious but alive to see another day. The final combatant committed the cardinal sin of taking his eyes off Naruto. Because in turning his back, he let Naruto disappear. The next time he saw the infamous redhead was with him on his back after Naruto swept his legs out. He barely got a look through the glaze in his eyes before Naruto turned his lights out with a stomp. Kind enough to rotate his defeated foes onto their sides, Naruto scanned the city for an indicator of where he was needed. His choice was taken out of his hands when a wave of bloodlust washed over him. With a frown, the deity headed toward the sickly sensation's origins. The Palace District. Along the way, Naruto came across a sight that made his blood burn like the midday sun. He saw Greek men piled in around a single man and a group of women and children. The lone enemy was beaten beyond belief. But he still stood guard against his aggressors. Said Greek men were leering darkly at the women, young and mature alike. Naruto didn't need to see any more. Greek or Trojan, these men weren't getting the benefit of the doubt. They were dead men walking. And his was the hand that'd deal out their punishments. The only one who saw the vengeful god act was the Trojan, and all he saw was a singular golden flash before 20 men fell dead. Naruto's unexpected move caused the fearful citizens to scream in shock. As their protector, the Trojan was about to try and calm them when Naruto stood between him and the pile of fresh corpses. Don't move. This will only take a second. Whatever plans the sandy-haired Trojan had toward grabbing his blade ended when Naruto's eyes glowed gold. Whatever lingering doubts he had disappeared under a flood of relief courtesy of Naruto's healing skill. In a few seconds, all cuts closed shut, the bruising vanished, and even his awkwardly pointing foot righted itself. There. Good as new. Does anyone else here need medical attention? None of the Trojans dared move until their rejuvenated guardian nodded toward them. Once they got his approval, 2 women moved to the front. Their dislocated shoulder and slashed wrist were easy fixes, which added to the admiration directed at the fire-haired god. Naruto's constantly kind smile didn't damage his growing fandom either. My lord, please help the child next. When Naruto saw a young girl brought to the front with one eye swollen past the socket and an ugly cut connecting her jaw to her chin, the god felt his fury seethe. Those fools are lucky they can only die once. Contrary to the inferno within, Naruto didn't show that fuming rage as he kneeled in front of the injured child. The godling favored her with his brightest smile. What's your name, little one? At the same time, Naruto carefully brushed the child's hair from her face with the back of his hand. It's Anna, mister. The strength she had to smile in spite of the terrible things done to her caused Naruto's heart to soar and ache in the same beat. That's a lovely name. Okay. Close your eyes and count to 5, Anna. Once you reach 5, open your eyes, and everything will be okay. I promise. Anna quickly followed Naruto's instruction, closing her eyes and starting a silent count in her head. She was curious like any child but kept her eyes shut like she was asked. 1. Having her eyes shut meant an inability to see Naruto's hand coming. That's why his touch, no matter how gentle, made the injured child flinch on contact. 2. The feel of a thumb caressing her gnarly gash started a welling of tears behind Anna's eyelids. A few moments more and the sniffles would have begun in earnest, but the brave child held strong. 3. Her tears never came, thanks to being covered with a warmth that encompassed her soul. It felt like being wrapped in a blanket and a hug simultaneously. Anna's smile was the most genuine response her childish body could muster. 4. A phenomenon only Naruto saw played out in slow motion. He watched Anna glow a bright gold before it faded into a healthy sun-kissed tone. The damage cruelly inflicted upon the girl was gone. 5. You can open your eyes now. And she did just that, revealing a set of innocent brown eyes. Anna took 3 blinks before she realized she was seeing through both eyes. Her unintended gasp lined up with her rubbing at her unmarred face. Nothing could stop Anna from shooting into Naruto's chest like an arrow. A flood of fresh, hot tears soaked his shirt while he leaned over to whisper soothing words into Anna's ear. It took a good minute before they separated, and Anna was willing to return to her mother's side. Naruto allowed a smile to take hold before he returned to business mode. Looking at the first person he healed, Naruto gave the man orders in what others had dubbed his commander's voice. Get these people somewhere safe. Out of the city would be best. If I find anyone else, I'll point them your way. His claim caused the man's brow to tighten under a furrow brought about by confusion. How will you know where we are? A mysterious smile did little to ease his confusion. Worry not, my friend. I have my ways. Here Naruto's eyes flashed gold, cementing the Trojan man's suspicions. The young god was already turning around when he was halted by a rushed verbal call. Stranger, please hold. May I ask for your name? I am Aeneas, and I'd like to tell my people the name of their savior. There was a strength in Aeneas' voice, an admiration that wouldn't take no for an answer. I'm Naruto. Now if you'll excuse me. There are others in the city who need my help. The taste of a burning sky. The smell of freshly shed blood. The sound of warriors screaming and dying. It was the sight of war. Ares, the son of Zeus and Hera, thrived in carnage and devastation. Finally, he felt alive after a dormant age of peace. Skirmishes occurred here and there, but it wasn't anything worthy of his attention. But none of that mattered now because his ichor sang with every swing of his sword. I want more. Give me more blood, you cowards. However, the god of war's raging bloodlust would go unanswered. The only ones around to hear his demands were piles of mutilated corpses. Greek and Trojans alike, no one was immune to the mass destruction that followed Ares like a heinous shadow. Heaving his blood-leaking greatsword over one heavily armored shoulder, Ares looked at the dismembered corpses with a disparaging scoff. Is this all there is? Weaklings. Where are the real warriors? I want a fight worthy of my time. An angry Ares kicked a loose arm in a show of his displeasure. To the war-hungry creature of conflict, it didn't matter if his victims were praying to him or the enemy. He was here for battle and death. He was here to enjoy war. Elsewise, he'd be spending time in bed with Aphrodite. Thinking about the most beautiful, fairest woman in the world had the temperamental son of Zeus licking his lips behind his helmet. The memories of their many nights tangled together in bed caused the blood-soaked deity to chuckle darkly. That worthless fucking cripple doesn't deserve a woman as fine as her. That's not nice to say about your own brother. Ares paused, and his red eyes searched the area for the man responsible for the comment. But with all the smoke in the air, the Olympian's vision was severely limited. If you have a problem with how I treat the stupid Smith, how about you do something? Or will you keep hiding like a coward? The tenuous quiet lasted until Ares' battle instinct kicked in. Turning around as commanded, his lackadaisical behavior cost him bodily harm. Because he turned into a diving slash that cut through the armor on his shoulder and sent a splash of golden, godly blood into the air. Most would have crumbled from the pain. Ares did the opposite. He began howling with laughter. It was as if the pain became a sick euphoria to the massive man. Finally, someone with the balls to fight like a man. This is what I wanted. Blood. Then again, you wouldn't have cut me if I wasn't wearing this cheap Trojan crap. Licking the blood off his fingers, Ares regarded his opponent for the first time. When Ares stumbled upon a shade of red he'd grown to associate with Aphrodite, his eyes grew large. He hadn't forgotten where his girl got her new look from. This was him. The one mortal Ares wanted to fight over any other. You. The demon. Yes. Yes. I've been waiting for this for years. Ares couldn't help but shake with murderous delight. Naruto swallowed the spiteful retort that almost came out instinctually. He attributed these atypical thoughts to Ares' violent presence. Because he honestly didn't feel angry enough to warrant such blind hatred. But that wasn't to suggest the battle in his brain was easy. You killed all these people. You're damn right I did. And I enjoyed every drop of blood. Ares gleefully hacked at the air with his sword, sending a wave of blood droplets at Naruto's feet. Too bad they died so quickly. I would have thought years of war would have made someone worth my time. Instead, all I got was disappointment. The Shinto deity's hand tightened around his hilt so tightly that his strained knuckles went white. His weapon trembled not in fear but with anger. How could you be so despicable? These people sought your guidance. They believed in you for years, and this is how you repay them. So what? Ares' cold indifference toward the massive loss of life stopped Naruto in his tracks. In disbelief, Naruto managed a blank stare, eyes wide and mouth open. They couldn't stand by their strength, so they were cut down. I have no use for weak men. Fodder like them was fortunate to taste my blade. Besides, they were just mortals. They're nothing to a god like me. Naruto had one thing on his mind. Attack. He came so very close to following that impulse. So close that his forward-placed foot took a firm step toward Ares. Said God smirking at the fuming redhead's wrathful sneer. But just when battle seemed inevitable, Naruto's tense shoulders sagged as he expelled the rage from his heart. You're nothing, Ares. What kind of leader sends his people to a senseless death? It's no wonder Athena has proven herself a better god of war. What did you fucking say? What appeared to be crimson lightning at a glance flickered over the exterior of Ares' armored physique. But having his divinity sealed away stopped Ares' true power from manifesting itself. He could break the seal, but even the reckless Ares wasn't stupid enough to break that edict. The dangers posed to him for such a thing weren't worth it. I dare you to say that again. Athena is better than you. In every way, Ares. Then go tell the dead all about her. Ares stormed forward like a raging bull with enough speed to catch Naruto off guard. His deceptive quickness caused Naruto to step back and ready his guard. A harsh clang of metal echoed in Naruto's ears as he blocked Ares' surge of overhead slashing. From behind his shield, Naruto was almost too slow to stop Ares' attempt at cutting him in half at the waist, but Naruto managed to relocate his shield in the nick of time. Shaking his shield arm to get some feeling back in his limb as he was knocked away, Naruto said nothing and readied for another charge. Ares didn't disappoint, but Naruto learned from their first exchange. Instead of blocking, he slipped under the Olympian's attack. Without the resistance, the war god extended himself too far, allowing Naruto to get behind him and slash at his back. "You slippery little shit." Slamming the pommel of his massive sword back into Naruto's gut, Ares created enough space to turn around. A heavy kick followed that, driving the redhead back into a nearby stand that remained intact throughout the chaos. Naruto opened his eyes in time to see Ares' weapon coming down. He quickly moved aside, and the wooden stand was chopped in two with startling ease. Naruto reached behind him for a clay jar. He took one of those jugs, and smashed it against the godly warrior's helmeted face. The impact didn't do nearly as much as the alcohol within, which splashed into Ares' eyes. "You fucker." The imposing man's cursing turned to grunting when Naruto returned the favor by burying the soles of his feet into Ares' chest. First to go was the helmet, as Ares did his best to wipe the alcoholic fluids from his eyes. However, the lingering pain didn't stop the black-haired brute from laughing. "That's more like it. Fight with everything you have. If you aren't cheating, you aren't trying." Without a helmet, Naruto saw Ares' bloody red eyes in their entirety. Time to pick up the pace. Arming himself with a dagger from the hip and shaking free the chain wrapped around his arm, Ares' brow sunk toward his eyes as he grinned maliciously. "Make this fun for me before you die." With that final howl, Ares' arm jerked violently. Crack. The purple in Naruto's eyes expanded when the heavy, rusty chain shot at him faster than any arrow. Its hooked end gleamed against the orange hue, promising grave injury should it connect. Naruto showed excellent reaction time when he narrowly inched away from the clawed prong of the unorthodox ranged attack. Now it was finally time for him to go on the counterattack. Gah! Naruto failed to see the hooked chain latch onto a large chunk of the ruined stall. That piece of debris was taken when Ares pulled back with his arm, sending the wooden clump smashing into Naruto's back, knocking the breath from the amethyst-eyed Kami. Ares didn't let Naruto catch his breath, literally or figuratively. In a second, he was in front of Naruto with his dagger plunging toward the redhead's eye. But stunned or not, Naruto wasn't an ordinary man. His instinct had him lifting his shield, saving his eye in the process. A real warrior doesn't cower behind a shield. Ares wrenched Naruto's bronze bastion from his grip. But in throwing the shield away, Ares opened himself up to Naruto's silent dagger, which the redhead hid, waiting for a chance to strike. Ares gave Naruto the opportunity, and he took it when he hilted the knife in Ares' chest. Grunting through the pain of having a blow aimed at his heart, Ares wasn't nearly as amused this time. "That's twice. I'm tired of this shit. You die." The furious war maker took Naruto by the wrist and threw the grown Naruto like a small boy, sending Naruto tumbling over himself like a child's ball. When Naruto slowed down enough to balance himself, the scuffed Shinto spat a mouthful of red blood into the dirt. "Thank Mother Chaos, the seals are still doing their job. The last thing I need is Ares knowing what I am. Okay. Think. His arrogance makes him sloppy. I need to use that." Naruto advised himself as he shakily climbed back onto his feet. Naruto sensed something change in Ares because the Olympian attacked without banter. Showing his expertise as a god of war, Ares came forth bearing yet another weapon. This time Zeus' bloodletting son barreled down on Naruto with twin swords. And not even the dagger stuck in his chest seemed capable of slowing the storm of sword strikes Ares unleashed with devastating accuracy. It became clear to Naruto why Ares removed his shield from the picture. Defending against this level of attack with only a sword proved to be a near impossible task. The Shinto son-born did all he could to protect himself, but the growing number of cuts along his arms and shoulders showed that Naruto's defense was far from perfect. Why did I think challenging a god of war to straight martial combat was a good idea? Stupid. 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 Aware he was losing this battle, Naruto decided to do something questionable. Thankfully, he didn't have time to second-guess his suspect choice. So when Naruto let Ares' blade hack into his shoulder, Naruto was fully committed. The warrior god of Olympus had a sick grin in place as fresh blood pooled at the hilt of his sword. However, Naruto didn't take this bodily harm quietly. With Ares close, Naruto lashed out like a coiled viper. His sword flashed and cut Ares across the eye, making the god shout in pain and stumble back with a hand clutching against his ichor oozing wound. Having ichor rolling down his wrist and inner forearm sent Ares into a seething period of murderous hate. His whole body darkened with a miasma of hatred. Not even Naruto standing helplessly with one good arm eased the furious deity's bubbling rage. You should have cut my head off, you fucking piece of shit. You can say whatever you want. I'm not afraid. Kill me if you can. I'm ready to see the river of the damned. Naruto's broad grin showed blood-stained teeth in a last, defiant stand. His devilish attitude didn't waver, even with Ares bearing down on him, blade in hand. Remember, you are nothing to a god, mortal. Do what your ilk does best and die. Ares believed his victory to be total and imminent. This belief in his triumph made the bloody god drop his guard, leaving an opening for Naruto to exploit. That would be Ares' last mistake. With the functioning arm Naruto still had, he released the mirage seal on his back, revealing a Menenuhoko in a gleam of light. Before Ares could do more than widen his eyes, Naruto lunged at his lumbering frame spear first. SCHLCK. Naruto's legs churned forward, driving the bulk of Ares' body with him until the end of his spear punched through a building wall. He had Ares pinned in a place where he could see the light drain from Ares' eyes as his essence left his mortal shell in favor of wherever a deity went to regenerate from their death. Once the deed was done, a Menenuhoko vanished beneath the seal Naruto kept on its haft. Meanwhile, Naruto fell onto his back and breathed out a large sigh. Days later. Naruto hoped against it, but the sack of Troy was inevitable. Bitter defenses bred bitter hatred, and the Greeks showed how deep their hate went. They reduced buildings to rubble and executed any civilians too stubborn to leave the city. So was the zealousness of the Greek victors. Yes, he saved as many people as possible before the killing began, but Naruto was saddened he couldn't save more. Feelings like these caused the hidden deity to take sanctuary in the peaceful wilds around Troy. Here he could rest his mind and body alike. Naruto let the necklace he got from Helen dangle off his fingers, catching the sunlight off his green gem. I don't suppose it was all bad now that I think about it. But Naruto knew it was only a matter of time before someone sniffed him out. So with a smile, he called out to the woods around him. I know you're there. You can come out. The familiar form of Atalanta emerged from the forest's shadows, but she wasn't alone. She came with a woman, one with long red hair and silver white eyes. The bow on her back and practical garb raised some questions, however. I knew you'd track me down sooner or later, Atalanta. His playful comment won Naruto a small smile from said woman. Part of her expression came from the immense relief of seeing her most trusted friend alive and well. Yes, well, someone has to keep an eye on you. It might as well be me. Atalanta's bit of wit brought laughter from Naruto. And honestly, it felt good to laugh again. As of late, Naruto hadn't had many reasons to express the pure joy of a good laugh. When you're right, you're right. It's good to see you again. Who is your friend? She looked familiar for some reason. Naruto's not-so-subtle reminder forced Atalanta toward her real purpose. With this came a wave of sobriety that slammed her expression with seriousness. The sudden change had Naruto looking more intently. In particular, he focused on the silver-eyed woman, who met his stare with one of her own. Neither showed animosity per se. However, neither appeared ready to back down without good reason. Atalanta wasn't ignorant to the tension created by the silent battle of wills. It was like seeing two wolves eyeing each other, waiting for a moment of weakness. She knew it was up to her to remove the tension before something pointlessly harmful occurred. This is Lady Artemis. Hearing Artemis' name is all it took to obliterate the fog of confusion in Naruto's mind. The pieces snapped into place all at once. The bow made sense. But more than that, Naruto understood why Artemis looked familiar. It was because he saw bits and pieces of Leto's facial structure in her daughter's face. Careful that he didn't stare too long, Naruto's weariness melted into a small, polite smile. He took it a step further when he stood up and bowed his head enough to show respect. It was like this that Naruto greeted the divine huntress. It's a pleasure to meet you, Lady Artemis. Once it became apparent he wasn't getting more than a nod, Naruto moved on from Artemis. His focus on Atalanta came with his brow cocked to the plain as day question. Not that I mind, but what does the business between you and Lady Artemis have to do with me? Atalanta could have reacted in countless ways, but the one she chose made Naruto balk in disbelief. He couldn't recall a time in all their moments together when the bold and fearsome Atalanta looked nervous. Ah, you see, I am. Patience won out as Atalanta found the fortitude required to force out whatever she wanted to say. I wish to join Lady Artemis' followers, the Hunters of Artemis. I was hoping you'd give me your blessing. Naruto's confusion turned into a smile bearing acceptance. This was typical Atalanta, always looking out for others instead of thinking about herself. But that's one of the reasons they got along so well. Atalanta, if you want this, you don't need permission. Not mine or anyone else's, for that matter. Go, follow your heart. Hearing his kindness unlocked Atalanta's heart, releasing all her worries in one fell swoop. To know Naruto didn't hold her choice to leave him against her meant plenty to Atalanta. Her smile and the subsequent hug she slammed into his chest was planned and spontaneous. Because in embracing her fire-haired best friend, Atalanta could hide her happy tears on his shoulder. Thank you so much, Naruto. From the peripherals of his vision, Naruto caught Artemis tensing at Atalanta's surprising move. The goddess looked conflicted but otherwise remained aloof. Making his deduction in seconds meant Naruto had plenty of time to put a reassuring hand on Atalanta's upper back. You deserve it, Atalanta. You deserve it. But I have a gift for you. 1. Using his hand as a medium for his spellcraft, Naruto applied a seal to Atalanta's back. To anyone else, the moment was indecipherable. But the princess felt something fundamentally change within her. Everything around her felt more clear. Atalanta didn't have to ask. Naruto had her answer ready. The seal I put on you will ensure you're immune to the treachery of trickery. Not even the schemes of gods and goddesses will affect you. This is my blessing to you. Making sure he spoke softly enough to go unheard, Naruto smiled once more when Atalanta's hug doubled in strength. He took this as another form of her gratitude. But all good things come to an end. Atalanta, we must be on our way. Artemis' first words ended the platonic moment between the two friends. Separating from Naruto with a final amicable nod, Atalanta went to her new patron. She walked past Artemis and into the abundant embrace of the wilds. This left Naruto and Artemis alone with silence and space between them. However, the silence didn't last long. Thank you for looking after Atalanta for all these years. Atalanta, she speaks highly of you. The huntress woman took the lead, coming out with the comment that set the tone for their discussion. A nod was Naruto accepting her unexpected thank you. She didn't have to thank him, but Naruto didn't want to be rude for no reason. There is no need to thank me. It was my honor to fight alongside Atalanta. I imagine she will grow even further under your careful watch. As her friend, I couldn't ask for more. His implicit belief in her as the best option took Artemis by surprise. Not only were they strangers, but she was a woman in a world dominated by men. That alone would have caused other men to laugh her off. Assuming they didn't know about her divine status, obviously. How can you be so sure? It's in your eyes, Lady Artemis. I see you care for Atalanta. That's all I need to see. I trust you'll do everything possible to help my friend succeed. Naruto's unshakable belief in people crystallized into a formidable charisma that made Artemis believe him. I'll treat her like one of my own. You have my word. With a fleeting promise between them, Artemis vanished into the woods, hot on the trail of her newly recruited acolyte. Good luck, Atalanta. Why would I give that man my word? He is just a man. But something about him is different. It's hard to explain. Artemis had several things on her mind. Most revolved around the man she and Atalanta left back in the clearing. When Atalanta first mentioned him, Artemis had a trove of doubts. These doubts were nothing personal. They were a result of her past experiences with men. Men, in general, were cruel, power-hungry creatures who cared little for the harm they inflicted. This was especially true when it came to women. So seeing Atalanta and her man friend interact firsthand left Artemis genuinely surprised. She expected the man to try and exercise his power over Atalanta to bind her to his side. But instead, the man welcomed the opportunity Atalanta had before her. And his happiness was genuine. Is something wrong, Lady Artemis? The gentle prodding from Atalanta took the goddess away from her mental deliberations. It was clear to the newest hunter of Artemis that something was weighing on her lady patron. Seeing no harm in sharing her suspicions with Atalanta, Artemis viewed this as a chance to build a relationship with her newest follower by being honest. You trust that man to keep his word. Despite Naruto being dear to her now, Atalanta didn't blame Artemis for letting her doubt seep to the surface. She also had reservations about Naruto when they first met. It feels like an age ago, but I had the same thoughts when I first met him. But he proved himself to be different through his words and actions. I wouldn't say he looked after us like his children. But he treated us like family. His family. A family. The reiterated words were hardly louder than a whisper. But they conveyed a subtle shift in Artemis' tone. After thinking about it momentarily, Artemis returned her steadfast gaze to her companion. And he never abused his power. Over you specifically. Her amused snort came out long before Atalanta thought of restraining it. The idea Naruto, of all people, would abuse his people was downright comical to her. Never. He made it his mission to get the best out of us. Man or woman, there isn't a difference in his eyes. He took care of us because we believed in him. The headstrong daughter of Leto planned on calling Atalanta's belief foolish until she saw the unflinching certainty in her new daughter's eyes. Then she remembered how he seemed to affect her personally. Maybe there was a hint of truth in Atalanta's admiration. Perhaps. He is more than most. Aware of the terms mandated by Artemis to become one of her immortal hunters, Atalanta understood why her lady distrusted men. She also didn't like men in general, but Naruto was far from the norm. However, Atalanta felt it'd be best for Artemis to learn this herself. Best to change the subject. Where are we off to next, Lady Artemis? The shift in conversation topic worked like a charm. Instead of a chilly indifference, Artemis carried a measured smile that belied her true happiness. You're the fifth to accept my offer. I want to gather you all in one place. We'll train together, travel together, picking up new recruits as we go. Women and girls who need help will have us. We join Naruto at the end of a story. With Ares and his violent presence disposed of, the war reached a natural conclusion. The remaining Trojans either retreated or fought to the last man in small pockets of resistance throughout the city. However, I focused on getting civilians out of Troy before the army sacked the city. That was how Naruto ended his account of the terrible Trojan War. With his story done, Naruto finally had the chance to run a hand through his hair, which was golden once more, a most obvious sign of an exasperated soul. Delos, sole inhabitant, sat directly opposite the young god with a warm smile, listening to his tale attentively. Seeing Naruto again after so long was reason enough for Leto to smile. Yours is quite the story. I guess I was right to worry about you. I would scold you for being so reckless, but I know your heart was in the right place. Which is more than I can say about the father of my children. Her brief pause was more than enough time to click her teeth and roll her eyes, but the annoyance didn't last. I'm glad you've returned safe and sound, Naruto. Naruto's answer was brutally honest. They were words from the darker corners of his subconscious. Sound might be an exaggeration when it comes to me. War is where decent people suffer, while the wicked spread their cruelty. I saw it. There was more than once where I wanted to burn everything to the ground, Leto. His guilty admission led Naruto to look down at the table in shame. So were the standards Naruto held himself to. Leto allowed Naruto to vent, saying nothing as his troubled thoughts spilled forth. The Titan matron was wise enough to understand an ill-placed word could do irreparable damage in this situation. When the silence became too heavy, Leto offered her peace while taking her fellow blonde's clenched fist into her hand. Naruto, your measure isn't about what you thought in a moment of weakness. No, it was about how you acted when faced with adversity. And you couldn't have done more. You were great, and the people were lucky to have you. In what was a habit for the son of Amaterasu, Naruto searched the Titan woman's eyes for sincerity. He found the honest affirmation he desired in droves. Thank you, Leto. That means a lot to me. He gave a reassuring squeeze before releasing Leto's hand. Content with knowing she successfully advised the young man who offered her a life after Zeus and Hera, Leto beamed positivity. Such was the power of her presence that the somber mood began lifting around Naruto. I'm happy to help. If you don't mind my asking, what happened with the assassins Helen mentioned in her secret message? They never came up in your story, so I'm curious. Initially, Naruto sat with his head tilted ever so slightly in confusion. Until understanding settled in. The assassins were something he skimmed over as unimportant. In mentioning them, Leto showed how attentive she was when he spoke. Right. I almost forgot about those guys. It turns out their bodies were among those Ares butchered before we fought. A turn of luck, I guess. Shaking her head amusedly at Naruto's casualness, Leto laughed at her young friend's antics. Even brutes have their uses under the right circumstances. Her ponderings drew a nod of agreement from her guest. What about Helen? Did she make it home safely? The mother in her made Leto's heartache for the young woman turned into a pawn through no fault of her own. Helen's mention gave Naruto a reason to smile. She was one of the more normal people Naruto encountered. So it was natural for him to keep an eye on her until she was back where she belonged, safe and happy. Helen returned home without incident. I can't say the same for others like Agamemnon, Odysseus, and Paris. Those three were among many punished by the gods for their less than savory behavior. Any other time, Naruto would have been against the severe punishments levied for petty offenses, but Naruto felt they had it coming for one reason or the other. A quiet hum passed between Naruto and Leto. There was a beat of silence before the Titan woman's latest inquiry. How about Atalanta? What happened to her? There was an unmistakable pride in Naruto's voice as he recalled his most recent meeting with his best friend and trusted ally. Atalanta was offered a new chance at life. She decided her place was with the Hunters of Artemis, founded by your daughter. And I'm glad. Atalanta deserved it. Naruto planned on getting a reaction by bringing up Artemis, but what Leto gave him went beyond reasonable expectations. Invoking Artemis' name and confirming their paths crossed revealed an entirely different side of the Titan matron. She went from serious to a gushing mother in the time it took to blink, including clasping her hands beneath her chin and prattling a seemingly endless line of questions. Oh, you met my moonlight. How wonderful. Did the two of you hit it off? What did you think of her, Naruto? Was she doing okay? I know you two will be perfect friends with time. Tell me everything, please. Leto's unexpected bombardment left Naruto bewildered beneath blank blinking. There were so many questions, almost too many. Deciding to ignore most of Leto's motherly enthusiasm, Naruto answered the one question he felt comfortable answering. I think she's interesting, I suppose. She's on guard but not reckless. I felt like Artemis was aware of everything around her. Even the small details most people miss. It's sort of like a predator waiting for a moment of weakness. I guess that's what makes her a good hunter. His hastily constructed but fitting analogy elicited laughter from Artemis' proud mother. Her daughter was a fierce woman. Of that, there was no doubt. Yes, that does sound like her, my moonlight. Artie is as serious as they come, almost too much at times. But under all that is a heart of gold. You should see her when she is with children. Artie turns into a mother bear through and through. And as her mother, I love seeing her heart open like that. Leto couldn't stop her hand from resting against her cheek. Nor the longing sigh which followed. A grandchild from her daughter was Leto's dream. A love for family and a strong sense of duty to her precious people. Just like me. Maybe Tsuki isn't so bad. But while Naruto retreated into his thoughts, Leto had her thoughts and plots to tease Naruto. You two should marry. I think you're the perfect match. You'll be so good for each other tilde. A mother knows these things. Blindsided by Leto's attempt at matchmaking, blood rushed to Naruto's face as he instinctively scrambled back, nearly knocking his chair over in haste. Marriage. No way, I don't know. On top of flustered denials, Naruto waving his hands almost broke Leto, but she held out against her laughter. Rising elegantly from her seat, Leto flowed gracefully around the table and advanced on Naruto. She got in close enough to go chest to chest with him, which made leaning toward his ear a formality. Or perhaps you're looking for someone more experienced to call yours. Was it possible for a sun god to burn? Because Naruto felt like his face was on fire. Unable to make his tongue work, he settled for internally cursing his lack of experience dealing with women, even if it was harmless, like what Leto was doing now. Mother, nix, nor Meg bothered educating him on the finer points of courtship. He was totally helpless here. Things shifted around for the better, and Naruto avoided further floundering when a localized surge of godly power washed over the area. Both blondes shared a look before their confused expressions turned toward the home's ceiling. Did you feel that? Though he offered a nod, Naruto remained hyper-focused on the prodding power he felt looming around the island. I do. It feels like someone is looking for something. You don't think it's Zeus? Do you? Leto knew better than most how jealous her former lover could be. She also knew Zeus was doing his best to pull her location from their twins. The idea of the Thunderer arriving caused an understandable frown. The Titaness was wise enough to realize what a meeting between Naruto and Zeus looked like. Taking an extra second to confirm what his senses told him, Naruto eventually responded by shaking his head. No, it's not him. This power feels like it's coming from somewhere higher than the sky. And now that I have a lock on it, it's two presences combining to make a single presence. Higher than the sky. It was Leto with the answers. Then without warning, she pulled the startled blonde from the house, leaving them standing on what was essentially Leto's lawn. Open the barrier, please. Let our guests in, Naruto. His face mirrored his inner uncertainty, so much so that Leto addressed the issue before it festered further. It will be all right. Trust me. A firm, unshakable smile sealed Naruto's choice. If that's what you want. Naruto aimed a hand toward the invisible barrier of ethereal energy around the island, and with his eyes blazing with power, he twisted his hand. The veil shimmered into existence just before a hole gradually opened in the bubble, resonating with the decisive motion. In through Naruto's invitation came a beam of pure light, which, upon crashing into the ground, bathed the whole island in a white glow. When the blinding light faded, two people were left opposite Naruto and Leto, a man and a woman. The man stood proud, a look not diminished by the age lines around his eyes. What stuck out most about him was the blend of white and gold hair that glinted in the sunlight. Beside him, the woman stood elegantly in her flowing gold and blue robe with a smile that brightened the world around her. Who are they? Leto was the one who answered Naruto's unasked question. Ether. Hemera. How long has it been? It's wonderful to see you again. Lord of the upper air and protogenes, Ether nodded gruffly. However, his eyes did possess a moment of kindness that came and went in a flash. Leto. His wife and the embodiment of daylight, Hemera, was much more enthusiastic in her greeting. She rushed across the green grass and swept Leto up in a hug that she returned happily. Too long. Leto. You look wonderful. Motherhood suits you. Parting from the hug but keeping her hands on Hemera's shoulders, Leto's smile exuded motherly pride. Thank you, dear. Being a mother comes with challenges, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. I can't imagine life without my darling twins. We need to set something up. I'd love to meet them myself. Maybe hear you embarrass them while we're at it. A pair of giggles went off before their conversation faded into whispers too soft for Naruto to understand. Feeling Ether's cold blue eyes on him is enough to steal away the young Kami's attention. Something about the man's stare rubbed Naruto the wrong way, a feeling Naruto wasn't hesitant to share. You have something to say to me? Or are you going to stare at me all day? I'm looking for what others seem to see in you. But all I see is little more than disrespectful whelp. Ether didn't bother mincing words. He said what he meant, something in short supply in this world. But Naruto was beyond taking slights like that sitting down. To be frank, I don't give a damn what you think about me. You're entitled to your opinion, but that doesn't mean I need to care. Like Ether spoke to him, Naruto gave it to the older man straight. The pre-war version of himself would have been more accommodating. However, this edition of himself had no time for unwarranted disrespect. Watch your tongue. Hemera's timely intervention prevented further escalation. She squashed the argument with a simple yet effective slap against the back of her husband's head, the force from which snapped his head downward momentarily. While Ether grumbled under his breath, Hemera took it upon herself as his wife to scold the ancient man for his behavior, much to Leto's amusement. Enough of that. You can't act like a boar and expect others to smile and bear it. Hemera. The prideful protogenus found himself suitably mollified by the actions of his other half. Had he been a younger or lesser man, being scolded like this would have resulted in an embarrassed flush. Don't Hemera me, Ether. You wrought what your behavior deserved. Drop it, or I'll lock you out of our home again. Her warning shut Ether down in his tracks. Pleased with her diffused husband, Hemera turned to Naruto, where her frown turned into a genial smile. Let me have a look at you, Naruto. Naruto blinked when the woman took his face into her hands. His surprise became a minor annoyance when the touchy goddess turned his head in different directions against his will. This forward handling created a twitch in his eyebrow. Look at you. Mother Nyx wasn't wrong about how bright you are. Not to mention how handsome you are, Tilda. I forgot you two are Nyx's children. The revelation of familial relation drained Naruto's indignation. Instead of snapping, he stood there with a smile. Naruto was always happy to meet more of his extended family. And his massive smile showed it. It's nice to meet you, Hemera. I'm Naruto Omikami. Being confronted with Naruto being polite was too much for the bright woman. With no hope of holding herself back, she hugged him. And embrace him she did, quite fiercely, in fact. How precious. I see why Mother Nyx beams with pride when talking about you. Until now, Leto contented herself with silence, opting to watch this peculiar first meeting. However, she felt obligated to point out something Hemera missed in her excitement. Hemera, I believe the young man would like some space to breathe. Genuinely oblivious to the plight of the young man in her arms, Hemera hadn't noticed Naruto's struggle against her strength until she looked down and saw his flailing. Oh, I am so sorry. She quickly released Naruto, letting him stumble back with a rushed breath. Gods. No one has done that since I was a child. At the very least, Naruto had a newfound respect for how strong the unassuming woman could be. Ha. Don't worry about it. So what are you two doing here? Did you come to see Leto or something? No, we came looking for you. There is a request, one Hemera and I plan on fulfilling to our mother. This time Ether was much more personable, making it easier for Naruto to pay him mind. His being serious meant Naruto could take him seriously in return. We want to train you. With some help, you can inch closer toward your full potential, young Omikami. Naruto felt himself falling into a frown, showing some of his confusion. In Naruto's opinion, their offered assistance was coming out of nowhere. What do you mean? Forgive me if this sounds rude, but how could you help me? Your powers are impressive for someone so young. As you are now, you're a credit to your lineage, yet you can still improve. I doubt you realize it, but you possess an affinity for wind. That is something we can work on together, Naruto. Hemera followed her husband's lead, sharing her plans for Naruto with the young blonde. I want to teach you how to use pure light. What do you think? Will you come with us and learn? The young Kami almost agreed to the offer based on the brightness of Hemera's smile. However, if you agree to our training, there won't be half measures. Once you're in, there is no going back. That's why you need to decide right now. Is this what you want? Naruto's molten eyes hardened with a determined glint upon being challenged. It was just a part of him to never back down when confronted with a challenge. Call him stubborn. If you're serious, then I am too. I'm in. For the first time, Naruto saw something close to approval sketched across Ether's stoic face. Along with it came the beginnings of a smirk. Good. The sooner we start your training, the better. Sure. Let me get my goodbyes in before we head out. Naruto didn't bother getting permission. Instead, he wheeled around and smiled at Leto. I'll be sure to stop by when my training's finished. Hopefully, it will be sooner than 10 years this time. The remark made in good humor sent Leto headfirst into laughter. Shaking her golden-haired head, the Titan mother matched Naruto's smile. I'll hold you to that promise. You got it. See ya soon. And with that, the three visitors departed Delos Island in a pillar of light, leaving Leto with her thoughts. He's one step closer to revealing himself to the world. I can only imagine what kind of storm you'll unleash when all is said and done, Naruto. The upper air. The divine trio arrived at the heart of a sprawling throne room. It was fitted with many colorful windows, letting light into the room through a tint of rainbow coloring, creating an ambiance that was difficult to match. And everything converged on the matching golden thrones, which glittered on and off like fireflies in a darkened sky. Sadly for his curiosity, Naruto wasn't allowed time to examine the room. Ether took control of the quiet room with his authoritative voice. I'll be preoccupied with matters of the realm for the rest of today. Tomorrow, training begins when the sun rises. Don't be late, and come ready to work. Gone in a buffeting burst of wind, Naruto blinked at the blunt man's abrupt exit. It was probably best that Hemura looped her arm through his because it left little time for Naruto to think about life training under Ether's taskmaster personality. Here, let me give you a tour. Under Hemura's guidance, Naruto spent hours learning about the day-to-day aspects of the Upper Air Kingdom. In being shown around, Naruto was introduced to the many air nymphs that helped maintain the realm. Evidently his warm demeanor and overall friendliness made Naruto an immediate favorite of the beautiful nymphs. Sure, the attention was flattering, and the air-attuned women were nothing short of stunning, but Naruto could have gone without the subsequent teasing from a tittering Hemura. During their sightseeing spree, the two divine beings also began learning more about each other. The mutual exchange of personal stories commenced with an innocent enough question from the younger blonde. Is it true you move into Tartarus during the night? Staring out at the ever-present layer of clouds in the distance, Hemura giggled melodiously at her future pupil's probing. I'm afraid that's a little wife's tale. I diminish my hold over the light when Mother Nix's night comes around. Nothing too terribly exciting or fantastical. I guess that does sound a little silly. Doesn't it? Rubbing the back of his head with his free hand, Naruto sheepishly chuckled when he realized how absurd his question sounded when said out loud. Not to mention wildly inconvenient. What about you, Naruto? Tell me something about yourself. Hemura accidentally dragged Naruto into the past. For a second, he saw another woman with golden hair taking an interest in him. Or that's how it looked on the surface. The truth was more cynical. It was based on lies. Demeter. Amaterasu's son quashed his troubled memories as quickly as possible while reminding himself that he was firmly in the present. He told himself Hemura wasn't following the same agenda the harvest goddess hid from him. Family. Hemura was family. I guess life has been a lot of fighting lately. That and me trying to help the people put the pieces back together after a decade of war. It's been rough. No amount of work on his part stopped the continuous cycle of pain. The long line of broken families left after the Trojan War seemed endless, even for a god. He allowed their pain to become his own. It was the least he could do for the suffering people. A well-timed application of pressure on his forearm courtesy of an attentive Hemura pulled Naruto away from his depressing thoughts. The understanding eyes of his hostess stirred Naruto back to the present. No, tell me about yourself, not your actions. I want to hear what makes you who you are. That is a complicated question. His golden eyes fell shut, momentarily masquerading a majority of his expressiveness. As he thought about the inquiry, particular faces emerged, which played a part in his heartfelt answer. I cherish what little family I have. If I can make those around me happy, then I am happy as well. Hemura couldn't contain the smile spreading across her face. That was her way of showing approval. Naruto gave the correct answer, but not a common one. What about the power you hold? It's an incredible feeling. Correct. How do you deal with wielding such responsibility? Her question wasn't a new one for Naruto. Perhaps that's why the answer came so naturally. Or perhaps, it was how comfortable the bright-eyed woman made him. I believe fire does more than destroy. It's my honor to represent the sun, a true force of life. I'd much rather spend my time bringing life to the world than death and destruction. Mother Nix was right. You possess a healer's soul. It's good I plan on teaching you how to harness the true healing power of the light. She saw this partnership going well since she preferred using her powers to help people whenever possible. Unfortunately, her time with the mortals was limited by her duties. I look forward to learning from you, Hemura-sensei. Months later, on Olympus. It wasn't an exaggeration to say Zeus hadn't felt this good since defeating his tyrannical father. Because through his superior intellect, he successfully wiped out countless threats to his throne without lifting a finger. Zeus called it pure brilliance worthy of song. With that damned prophecy in the past, he could focus on living a king's life. Parties and beautiful women seemed an appropriate way to celebrate his success. Any chance at a potential party reached a premature end when Zeus sensed someone entering the sprawling boundaries of his palace temple. The arrival of his beautiful sister was a welcome surprise. It spurred the bearded lightning lord to smirk at his one-time lover. Demeter, it's lovely to see you. Would you care to join me for some quality alone time? Wheat-shaded eyes were rolled prior to Demeter's suffering scoff. She didn't care enough to humor the flirtatious attempt, not after Zeus' failure to defend their daughter from Hades' machinations. Not a chance in Tartarus. I wouldn't do that to our sister. I'm here to share something important with you. The king's face wrapped around a stormy expression of displeasure, one born from Demeter's blatant refusal. The sour look on the bearded god's face wasn't uncommon, despite Zeus' repeated attempts at defending himself against accusations that he was prone to emotional outbursts. Fine. Be that way if you must. What are you here for? Demeter breathed in, resisting the urge to comment on her baby brother's terrible attitude. It'd be better to focus on the reason she visited him in the first place. One of my children had a dream. What does that have to do with me? Zeus' ego drove his interruption. He saw no reason why he needed to care about one of his sister's offspring. Who cared what dream they had? His time was better spent elsewhere than listening to meaningless prattle. A king such as himself was above this menial trite. Or so he believed. Shut your mouth, and I'll get there. Demeter growled through her frustration. An insult here was unnecessary. If she wanted to get back at her brother for the disrespect he showed, all Demeter needed to do was deliver her message. Her temperamental brother's reaction would prove more satisfying than any backhanded comment. They dreamed of Olympus in flames. Dark flames. Our gold palaces burned, and the white clouds turned black from soot. They saw your reign end in ash. Thunder shattered in the distance as the supreme ruler of Olympus exploded to his feet. Zeus' frown reached a harshness that caused a deep crease in his brow. Meanwhile, his seething glare included the stray spark of poorly controlled lightning. Are you threatening me? The Harvest Queen armed herself with a shroud of divine essence. If her brother decided to go on the attack, she'd be ready for him. They saw a black sun behind a man with golden black hair. Wherever he walked, the flames bowed to him. My child saw his burning golden eyes, and then the flames went black and consumed everything. Olympus in ruin. Black flames. Preposterous. They were the most dominant force on the planet due to his power. Not the dwellers in the desert. And certainly not the barbarians in the frozen north. Nothing could touch their sacred grounds of Olympus. I have no time for the overactive imagination of some child. Begone before you anger me further, Demeter. His older sister shook her head with a touch of sadness scattered across her otherwise flawless face. Zeus still wasn't understanding. She'd give it to him straight. No clever verbal twists or tricks. Don't you get it? The man in the vision isn't some random figment. It's the same man you had me spying on. Zeus needed a moment to recall who she was talking about. When he finally remembered the boy, the response was underwhelming. Zeus scoffed at Demeter's overdramatic assertion. He was so unbothered he even waved away her concern. You speak of the boy with the strange name. Don't make me laugh. We haven't heard nor seen a hair of him since. That boy is dead. Seriously, sometimes it was like trying to talk with a wall. I tried. That's all I can do. If you listen to reason, the consequences are on your shoulders. As she turned and walked away, the smirk on her face was there. She knew this would bother him long beyond her exit. Breathing out through his nose, Zeus shoved the events of the past few minutes from his mind. Or at least, he tried banishing them. But it wasn't long before the things shared with him crawled back into his thoughts. Nervously, his fingers beat against the arm of his opulent throne. What if? What if the prophecy was wrong? What if the threat is still out there waiting in the shadows? Zeus attempted to slam a lid on his troublesome thoughts. Same as his fist smashing against his chair. The small web of fractures was repaired instantly, but the God King's irritation remained. No, nothing has changed. The throne of Olympus is mine. We shall stand for an eternity. I am the one and only king. But what if those flames descended upon his kingdom? These dark thoughts plagued Zeus like the storms that plagued Olympus for the next week. 2 years later, floating off the ground at the heart of a sky-rending tornado was none other than the blonde Kami. Naruto flexed his power, and the wind itself answered his call. It whipped around the sunny blonde in a howl as the air grew heavy and polluted the sky with murkiness. Naruto's bleak silhouette threw its arms outward, commanding two pillars of highly condensed air blasting forth. Those twin terrors ripped trenches into the ground that continued for as long as the eye could see. That's when one of Naruto's clones illuminated the gloomy space by peppering the original's tornado tunnel with spat firebombs. Alone, the clone's attacks did nothing as the crushing cycle of blunt force wind snuffed out the flames. It wasn't until two more clones joined their brother. Their combined front forced Naruto from his violent wind veil, lest he be turned into a bonfire. Naruto crash-landed amid the trio of clones with humming buzzsaws of pure wind levitating above his open hands. The clones on the flanks weren't quick enough, but the center duplicate saved himself by taking to the sky. That was a mistake. In the sky, there was no defense against Naruto's new command over the wind. All it took was Naruto clasping his hands to create two grinding walls of concentrated atmosphere that crushed the airborne clone like a bug. The satisfied Sunborn didn't revel for long before he was forced into flipping. Hanging upside down, Naruto brought a wind-covered foot up and sent an orb of divine energy into the clouds with a kick. The orb's distant boom announced a new challenger's arrival. You should pay more attention to your surroundings, boy. And you need to learn how to relax, old-timer. His bit of quick wit became a grunt as he was forced to defend against Ether's closed fist. Nixus Protogenus' son followed his punch with a series of kicks that sent Naruto backward. The golden Kami saw his trainer charging his way on the tail end of two propulsive jets. Ether's frontal charge left Naruto with a smirk. Let me show you why charging a hothead is stupid. A spark of fire on the left. A whisper of wind on the right. These two elements fostered in Naruto's respective hands, growing more powerful by the moment until their danger couldn't be denied. Ether noticed the threat but couldn't stop his charge in time. Boom. Nor could the older man prevent Naruto from slamming his hands together and making a massive explosion that devoured both fighters in a concussive dome of fire and wind. Ether emerged from the aftermath first, landing feet first on solid-ish ground. Other than singed clothes, he came out of the attack unscathed. The shield of golden power he erected in front of himself proved wise as Naruto came crashing down a moment later with an orb of red energy grinding into his defenses. 1. The two training foes locked gazes, giving a disapproving Ether his chance to offer a critique even as his shield cracked under the ferocity of Naruto's attack. You need to add divine power to your attacks. Pure elemental manipulation isn't enough. That last attack should have done more damage. Naruto refrained from rolling his eyes at the older being's super serious attitude. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was trying to hit you. His golden eyes blazed as his power signature raised exponentially. Fine. You want power. You can have it. Using Ether's construct to leap backward, Naruto created plenty of room to launch his next move. And it all started with the blonde holding a hand above his head. From the cradle of his palm came a pulsating orb of crimson energy. The ball grew until its spiraling mass shadowed the entire clearing. Emerging out of the volatile core was a harrowing whistle and four ethereal blades of wind that jutted out of the four cardinal directions. Those deadly protrusions began to rotate, gaining speed with every full rotation. When those spinning blades reached full tilt, they generated hurricane-force winds and absorbed the reddish tint from the attack's nucleus, which gave the wind-made extensions a bloody pink hue. Ether was forced to brace himself against the jarring headwinds. When the older man realized the true extent of the danger, he turned and ran, but it was too late. By now, Naruto's attack was the size of a mountain range. Rasenshuriken. As if the ball of chaotic ruin was overjoyed to hear its name, the spiraling orb's whistle turned into a piercing shriek. Naruto's hand fell away, releasing the crimson sphere of destruction to rise into the sky. It went hundreds of feet before stopping. Standing under the looming doom with arms crossed, Naruto unleashed pure devastation with a single word. Katsu. On Naruto's command, the crimson orb imploded, unleashing a ravaging shockwave of severing wind power in a dome stretched for thousands of feet. When the wild howling of divine fury faded, the scar left on the land was there for all to see. Not only was there a massive chasm torn into the planet's surface that'd make Tartarus envious. And it was directly underneath the stoic Naruto's feet as he floated above the gaping drop. "You can come out now." A few seconds later and out stumbled Ether. The man was still alive, but the entirety of his right arm wasn't so lucky. Having his arm cut off would have been kinder than what Ether got with his mangled limb hanging by a thread at his side. You could wipe out all of Greece. Naruto didn't say anything. His actions delivered a clear message on his behalf. Then we are fortunate Naruto would never do something like that. In one sentence, Hemera dashed any tension left in the air after Naruto's staggering display of might. Her soft words soothed her husband and brought a smile to Naruto's face. "Naruto, would you take care of this mess while I fix up my foolish husband?" "Of course, Hemera-sensei." Fixing the damage he unleashed on the landscape was surprisingly easy, thanks to his Fade barrier. Shuri. The kami for repair manifested across the previously intangible bubble, and in seconds, the ruined setting reverted to its past glory. "She is sensei, but he calls me an old-timer." The only indication anyone acknowledged Ether's indignant grumbling was the smile on Hemera's face as she healed his arm. She was unapologetically pleased to be Naruto's favorite. "None of that, Tilda. Now that you two have gotten that out of your system, we're having a feast before Naruto leaves us." It was time for the upper air to celebrate. Hephaestus avoided most social contact. The latest council of the gods reinforced this distaste in his innovative mind. All anyone wanted to say to him was, "Hephaestus, do this." Or "Hephaestus, make that." They didn't treat him like family. They ordered him around like a dog because he understood the forge better than anyone else. And was he ever thanked for his efforts? Not one damn time. It was as humiliating as it was infuriating. The fire in the forgemaster's belly went from metaphorical to physical as flames burned vengefully on Hef's fingertips. His red hair resonated with this rage. And his lone yellow eye, a massive flaw in his human disguise, lit up dangerously. His one eye reminded Hef of the sins his mother and father committed against him. Never to be fixed, just like the damage Zeus and Hera did to him. "Forget about them. The sooner I get this done, the better." Pure chance led the wayward forge god to this nondescript farmstead where a man at work was lamenting the state of his broken tools. Hephaestus watched the mortal fret over feeding his family for 10 minutes before the hard-working farmer disappeared into his small but well-built home. Call it kindred spirits, but Hef found something in him aching to assist his fellow craftsmen. All the god needed was a snap of his fingers, and the outdated farming tools were awash in forge flame. Their ordinary outlines housed an otherworldly shine for a moment before they emerged reforged and better than ever. With his oversight, these tools wouldn't ever wither or waver. Smirking at a job done amazingly, Hephaestus disappeared as the mortal stomped onto the tilled field. What in the name of? Widely set eyes displayed vast disbelief as the tools he left broken now looked brand new. He almost thought he was in a dream and looked around for anyone to confirm what he saw. When he finally grabbed the reborn instrument properly, the odd man's surprise turned into elation. "This is great. Better than ever." Hiding in plain sight was a trick every god knew. This same sleight of hand allowed Hef to watch the man vibrate in place, thanking whoever bestowed him with such a treasure. The odd but touching sight put a sideways smile on the fiery smith's beard. He compared this singular mortal to his entire family, the levity in his smile shattered like brittle bronze on an unforgiving anvil. Against his will, Hephaestus' photographic memory saw Ares' arrogant face smeared with a sickening mixture of hate and jealousy. Right beside him was Hephaestus' wife. Her beauty inspired nothing but boundless betrayal in the forger's heart. Then came his parents. Zeus and Hera were unique in many ways, but both carried the same look of disappointment when he pictured them. And nothing he accomplished changed that. "Hephaestus, our family is not perfect. They hurt and harm, often without thought of the consequences. It is not right, but it is all we have. We owe it to ourselves to do our best for them and us." "I can't do it, Aunt Hestia. I don't have the same unshakable belief you do. I am not that admirable, but I can do better for myself. Next time I spend time in the forge, I'll pour everything I have into my newest ideas. Greek fire and combustion. It's the future. I see it in the flames." So lost amongst his never-ending maze of innovative ideas, Hef didn't realize he had long since abandoned his invisibility cloak. But reality came back when the forge deity heard a voice. Is everything all right? You look like a man with troubles. I hate to assume, but perhaps a fresh set of ears could be of some assistance. Though he tried approaching with an inviting tone, Naruto made the mentally absent Olympian jolt in surprise. To allow Hephaestus a momentary reset, Naruto waited patiently for a reply. Looking at Naruto long enough to memorize his face and no longer, Hef turned the other way. His murmured response was slurred together beneath his breath, making it difficult to decipher. No, I'm fine. Nothing here to worry about. Naruto offered nothing more than a nod as he settled into the empty seat beside Hephaestus. An easy wind swept across both men, drawing a close-eyed sigh from the blonde. There is something about tasting fresh air. I can taste it thousands of times, and it never gets old. Thumping calloused fingers into the top of his thighs. It took more than Hef realized to keep his nervous fidgeting under control. I guess. I don't know. If that's what you like. In his opinion, the smell of fire and bronze, the smell of a forge in full swing, was unmatched. Seemingly unbothered by the brevity of the responses, Naruto soldiered forth in his attempts to keep a modicum of discussion alive between them. Excuse me if this comes off as random, but what's your take on the sun, my friend? Genuinely shocked by how casual Naruto was with him, Hef's eventual response was clumsily executed. However, the forge man's reply was colored by experiences with a certain golden archer. It's too bright. And it's annoying when it gets in my way. Yes, I can see why some people might think that. A chuckling Naruto agreed in good humor as he looked out at the sprawling land. Would you like to hear what I think about the sun? Sure. Most people view fire as a force of destruction. Chaotic in its application but unprejudiced in its destruction. Naruto's opening comment was strong enough it inspired an interruption from his fellow fire deity. They aren't wrong. Fire hurts. Less speaking about the fire itself and more himself, the disguised forge worker's face darkened with memories of his family's cruelty. Hef wisely kept a lid on his godly energies, but any more, and he'd blow his top in a glorious geyser of pent-up rage. Doing that wasn't something he wanted to unleash on the undeserving. That'd make him like Ares. A brute who only cared for the furthering of his own power and reputation. Hef wasn't like that. He was more reserved, and oftentimes that lack of assertiveness turned him into the butt of jokes. I believe you're right and wrong. Fire can do all those things, but it is capable of much more than a field of smoldering ash. It was the power of flame that brought life. If fire gave birth to our most precious resource, what else can it do? The more Naruto seemed to muse aloud, the more excited the blonde became. Until it gave birth to a smile teeming with hope. Stricken by the absurdity of Naruto's comment, a snort from Hephaestus was inevitable. You believe there is something out there better than life itself? That's ridiculous. His gruff demeanor made Hef's refusal come across harsher than he intended, but Naruto took the reply in stride. Perhaps nothing better than life itself, but who is to say there aren't other miracles out there waiting for us? That is the best thing about fire, in my opinion. The endless potential. Just thinking about the endless opportunities waiting to be discovered had Naruto's expressive eyes glowing with metaphorical hope. Endless potential. Something unquantifiable clicked in Hephaestus' heart. His demeanor changed from stoic to almost anxious as he mulled over the depth of Naruto's hopes. Like a flame fanned, his kindling doubts became a bright inferno ready to be unleashed. I have to go. Glad I could help. Naruto didn't get long to himself before someone else approached him. It was someone with striking beauty. It was someone very familiar to him. It was Leto. Leto, what are you doing here? His question was well earned since Naruto couldn't recall a time outside of their first meeting when Leto wasn't presiding on the island he created for her. So, this rare occurrence was literally blowing the younger blonde's mind. Leto carried a smile from the pleasant feeling of getting one up on her mischievous friend. She wouldn't call it a competition, but without a doubt, Naruto surprised her more often than not. Now, it was her turn to return the favor. I happen to be looking for someone. Also, getting off the island is a nice change of pace. Lets me stretch my legs. Of all people, Naruto couldn't blame her for being infected with the wanderlust bug. Some of his best memories came from traveling across the world, so he gave the friendly Titaness an understanding nod. Is there anything I can do to help find this person? His offer for help brought out a small smile but was ultimately waved off by Leto. That's kind of you, but unnecessary. It was his vast experience with people that helped the Golden Titaness answer Naruto's question before he voiced it. I came to find you because I want to take you with me. While not opposed to going on a trip with Leto, Naruto did find the suddenness of her offer more than a little suspicious. Perhaps that's why his eyes squinted as he regarded Leto inquisitively. I'm inclined to agree, but I should ask. Where do you plan on taking me? Why to go and see my daughter? What? Leto, I told you. Leto moved forward quickly, preventing Naruto from putting forth a verbal defense. I grow tired of watching you drag your feet, so I am forcing your hand. One way or the other, you are coming with me, Naruto. You can't put this off any longer. I won't allow it. Her thoughts were clear and stated with the force of her conviction, compounding the impact. Naruto barely refrained from slapping a palm against his forehead, but the same couldn't be said for the exasperated groan slipping off his lips. Not this again. We've already talked about this several times. He wanted to be annoyed. And yet, Naruto admired Leto and her unshakable persistence because he knew she thought this was in his best interests. Take it from me, Naruto. As someone who has seen paranoia firsthand in my former husband, I say this with the utmost respect. You're being paranoid for no reason. No good reason. The golden-haired Titaness dropped her hands onto her hips, preluding the stern glare she unleashed on her fellow blonde. Since you returned from training with Ether and Hemera, you have been looking for excuses where there are none. Go on, tell me I'm wrong. Their silent battle didn't last very long before Naruto caved with a forlorn sigh. How could he make a legitimate argument when Leto was right? I hate it when you're right. Fine, let's go find your daughter. Alight with joyous delight, Leto helped Naruto to his feet. A hand set on Naruto's shoulder is how she sent them off to meet the Moon Huntress. Huntress Camp. Thy training is paying off. The placement of thine arrows is well struck and plenty deep. If thou perform like this in the field, the monsters won't have a chance against our combined might. Zoe Nightshade served as lieutenant and second in command of Artemis' nomadic band of hunters. And today, she had only praise for her sisters as she examined the fruits of their training. They exhibited coordination and discipline in droves, core tenets of a good huntress. Smiles went all around as the group soaked in their superior's acknowledgement. The huntress hopefuls lowered their bows and nodded happily. Atalanta, their trainer, was downright deferential to the impact of Zoe's tutelage over the weight of her instruction. The thanks is yours, Zoe. Without your help, these young women wouldn't have gotten this far. If anyone deserves the praise, it's you. Atalanta had adopted a new look with her furs and leathers broken up by the occasional accent of silvery white. It was the same for the oaken laurel fastened in her blonde hair. Hair, which now fell to the back of her shoulders. Thy words fill my heart with joy. However, it's my honor to make thou the best thou can be. Remember, we aren't a unit but a family, and family always looks out for each other. And that was the truth. Zoe didn't do these things for the reward of recognition. She worked as hard as she did to ensure her sisters were ready to face a cruel world. Monsters, men, and gods. They all posed a threat to her sisters. I couldn't have said it any better myself, Zoe. Lady Artemis. Taken to her teenage form, Artemis looked much the same. A practical look and long red hair. Similarly, her silver eyes still shined despite losing some of their otherworldly glow in the harsh daytime sun. The formal way they addressed Artemis wasn't any different from any other follower of a god, but what separated her daughters from others was the unconditional love she felt through their unique bond. Zoe said it beautifully, but allow me to reiterate. You aren't my followers. You are my daughters. The way you defend me, I will defend you. This is our family. Remember that always, and you shall never waver. This bonding moment between the unorthodox family ended when another huntress arrived at camp with her tracking wolf in tow. Her black hair caught the sun as she bowed slightly to her idol and mother. Lady Artemis, there is something amiss in the forest. Her short statement sent a curious ripple through the others, but Artemis seemed less than concerned as she stared into the forest of trees. Artemis shook her head and smiled. Her silver eyes returned to her daughter with no shortage of warmth. What did you find, Callisto? Callisto adopted a troubled look, but she continued to share what caused her displeasure. Something out there is eluding me. It would disappear when we approached and reappear after we left the area. I found it a frustrating experience. I apologize for putting you through unneeded stress, Callisto. I should have warned you that my mother was coming to visit today. That is her presence you felt. She must be waiting for me to greet her personally. The sudden yet unexpected news left everyone with wide eyes. Leto's visits weren't rare, but they were always welcomed by Leto's granddaughters. Why don't you girls prepare for lunch? Zoe, Atalanta, and myself will go and greet my mother. With the group of bow-shooting ladies scattering, the goddess took her two trusted daughters into the forest, with Artemis taking the lead. Atalanta failed to hide a smile while watching her lady patron walk with an extra pep in her step. Zoe saw the same thing beside Atalanta and brought it up in the form of some light chatter. Lady Artemis is always like this whenever Lady Leto visits. Normally, I'd say it's because that is her mother, but we both know it's because Lady Artemis is a glutton when it comes to Lady Leto's homemade meals. The joke had both women laughing softly at the expense of the goddess in front of them. But it was done in good spirit. None saw it, but their accurate teasing put an emphatic golden blush over Artemis' otherwise fair complexion. So what if she adored her mother's cooking? It was food to die for, and everyone who tasted it would say the same. You are aware I can hear you too. Her flat comment deepened the laughter pouring from Zoe and Atalanta. Leto came forward to this sight. The warmth surrounding the group of three put a brilliant smile on the mother's face. To see her daughter happy is all Leto needed from this world. I see everyone is in high spirits. May I ask what has them in titters, my dear daughter? My beloved daughters are having fun at my expense, mother. Artemis broke into a near gallop, erasing the space between mother and daughter as she flung herself into her mother's comforting embrace. Nothing needed to be said, not when the hug conveyed everything and then some. Extracting herself from Leto's arms after getting her fill, Artemis cut to the left with a calculating glint in those resplendent pools. What are you trying to keep from my senses, mother? Despite the nature of her accusation, there wasn't anything inherently wrong with the question. Just some wonder and curiosity. Leto sighed long enough to puff out her cheeks. It was followed with an exaggerated dipping of the Titan woman's shoulders. The golden matron shook her head with a hint of a smile. It was much easier to hide things from you when you were younger. The odd compliment regarding her tracking skills caused Artemis to beam with pride. You can come out now. Upon being summoned, Naruto fell from the nearest tree. He skimmed the stray leaves from his hair and smiled in greeting. While Artemis tried recalling where she knew his face from, Atalanta broke into a full-on sprint. Naruto. Credit to him, Naruto was prepared for the reunion as he caught Atalanta mid-leap and lifted her into the air with a rumble of laughter. The two old friends were quickly sent into their own world. One that saw the huntress firing off comments and questions that Naruto answered with a smile. Zoe's hand went for her bow on instinct when Naruto wrapped his arms around her sister. What stopped her from notching an arrow was Atalanta's genuine smile. Hesitantly, Zoe watched Naruto with a tight stare. Waiting. Almost expecting him to go too far. Unlike her confused lieutenant, Artemis recognized the name. The red hair and purple eyes she remembered were gone, but that was the name of the man she met in Troy. But how was this possible? He should have been long dead from old age. How are you still alive? That's impossible. I'd like answers. I'm sure Naruto would be happy to explain. Isn't that right, Naruto? Leto's prompting was the catalyst that recaptured Naruto and Atalanta's attention. The pair of slightly embarrassed friends tried laughing off their lapse in focus. More so the blonde son of Amaterasu. I have met two of you in the past, but for everyone's sake, allow me to properly introduce myself. I am Naruto Omikami, the Shinto god of the sun and other things. The pleasure is all mine. Naruto needed all of his restraint to stop himself from snickering at the shocked faces pointed at him. No matter how old, a part of him relished making chaos. Zoe spent many years by Artemis' side, where she heard murmurs of other pantheons through her mistress. However, this was the first time Zoe had the chance to meet a god outside of her ancestral pantheon. What surprised Zoe the most was how unassuming Naruto was. Mother, what were you thinking? Why would you bring someone like this here? You should understand what kind of danger this man poses to us all. Father would. The moon patron's shock turned her tongue sharper than otherwise. Perhaps aided by a twinge of Zeus mentality toward other pantheons leaking to the surface. Artemis, you are my dearest daughter, and I love you with all my heart. But if you continue to spew that divisive rhetoric your father is enamored with, I will be terribly cross with you. An uncommon splash of disappointment ran over Leto. For those around her, it was surprising, but none more than for her daughter, who physically recoiled with a wince. Leto's slightly raised voice shredded through Artemis' argument, leaving the moon goddess mumbling inconsequentially. Left with little choice, a thoroughly chastised Artemis looked away momentarily. Once her embarrassment was under control, she looked from her mother to Naruto and dipped her head. I apologize for jumping to conclusions. I should and will be better than that in the future. Naruto nodded back while Leto continued her efforts to break the ice between her daughter and Naruto. This was a setback, but her former husband's idiocy wouldn't deter her. Artemis, you're aware of the curse placed on me by your father's current wife and how it prevented me from giving birth to you and your brother, right? Of course, I remember. I'm not an airhead like Apollo. Leto smiled with amusement. No matter how mature her daughter became, mentioning her sunny twin seemed to bring out the childish innocence Leto adored in her daughter. This young man standing next to me is responsible for creating the island we call home. Naruto scratched at the back of his head sheepishly as their surprised stares fell on him. The barrier around our island is also his work. He is the sole reason our family is here today, Artemis. We owe Naruto more than we can hope to repay. Naruto thanked his adoptive mother that the silence didn't last. Because the looks he was getting were really embarrassing. Wait, you're older than Lady Artemis, Naruto. Looking aside to find a stunned Atalanta gaping at him, Naruto nodded nervously in confirmation. Yeah, I guess I am. Did that never come up? When he got an almost lifeless nod, Naruto smiled so broadly it forced his eyes shut. Well, I am. Though not too much older. A decade or two at most. As a spectator, the strangeness of this moment had pushed Zoe into forgetting her traditional suspicions in favor of wanting to learn more about the oddity that was Naruto. How have you gone this many years undetected? Have you met any of the other gods? I've met quite a few. They didn't know they were talking with another god, but I have met them. Some of them were cool. Others weren't. It's a lot like meeting a mortal in that regard. Artemis moving in front of him got Naruto's attention, but nearly as much as her beginning to bow at the waist. Hastily putting a hand on her shoulder, the golden-eyed Shinto Sun Lord had a point to make. Please, if you want to thank me, that's fine. But you don't have to do that. Words will be plenty. The huntress flared a surge of power in warning, which got Naruto to remove his hand. With that settled, her expression softened, and she nodded. Thank you. Thank you for helping my mother when she needed it most. Fantastic. Now that we have that settled, I'll make lunch for everyone. There wasn't anything a good meal couldn't accomplish. Leto's excellent cooking brought high spirits and a good vibe through the camp. Conversations across the improvised hall meshed, creating an air of camaraderie that bathed the afternoon in a pleasant glow, including our resident Shinto Kami. At the start, Naruto dealt with weary eyes watching everything he did. The few responses he got were clipped, but that didn't stop Naruto from making an effort to integrate himself. With an abundance of tenacity, he worked his way from outsider to being tolerated by the all-female hunting brigade. However, not everyone treated Naruto with frosty indifference. Atalanta was pivotal in getting his foot into the door. Her willingness toward Naruto was a good start. And it helped Naruto win over some of the hunters. Consequently, the group huddled around listening to one of his stories. This unexpected gathering didn't escape the Moon Maiden's watchful gaze. Artemis followed her fellow gods' every mouth with the intensity of a hawk. Past experiences told Artemis that Naruto would eventually try and impose on her daughters like the pitiful men who tried leveraging some sense of power. Watching and ever vigilant, Artemis regarded her guest with a predator's gaze. Her focus on him left Artemis listening to Naruto's far-fetched tale that included an adventure alongside a traveling herbalist and his family. He spoke at length of mystifying caves that went on endlessly and about nights around a campfire where he amused the children with fireworks. Artemis' doubts notwithstanding, she found herself pulled into Naruto's story. She particularly enjoyed the part where Naruto tricked a pair of wandering minotaurs into goring themselves while the blissfully unaware mortals slept the night away. She wasn't alone in this regard. True or not, Naruto's skilled depictions and flowery theatrics earned him his fair share of laughter from the hunters, who imagined every avid detail with a smile or a smirk. Artemis was drawn away by the taunting jesting from her mother's mouth. If you look in his direction any harder, there will be those with questions, daughter of mine. Artemis flinched back aghast as if someone struck her. Mother, what are you saying? I am not and will never be interested in any man like you are suggesting. Embarrassed in a way only Leto could muster, Artemis hastily and emphatically denied her mother's suggestion fundamentally. In fact, she responded so strongly that she knocked some of her stew onto herself, getting the Moon Maiden to curse as she tried wiping away the mess on her hunting tunic. Much to the flustered goddess' consternation, Leto only smiled like she knew something Artemis didn't. It was a look that had Artemis fighting back a petulant pout. If you think so, my daughter. But be mindful you aren't too wrapped up in the future, or else you will miss the present. Their people had many faults, but what Leto loathed most was their unhealthy fascination with prophecy. It was a problem that went beyond Zeus to his father and beyond. It's always a prophecy. A plague on us all. Maybe not all of us. Here, the woman's eyes drifted toward Naruto, who was putting the finishing touches on his treasure hunt story. And I swear by chaos, they had us running from a wave of poisonous mushroom spores. Though the huntress snorted, there was a tint of humor in her eyes as she shook her head side to side. You can't be serious. That sort of thing doesn't happen. Naruto laughed alongside the others, not offended by the disbelief conveyed by some in his audience. He supposed it was a touch fantastical. I swear on everything, it's the truth. We all know what kind of world we live in. Is my story really that improbable? Another huntress didn't seem to mind like her sister. She was leaning forward and hooked on every word. So how did the whole thing end? Don't hold out on us. Okay, I hear you. So, the golden coin of Karen we went out looking for. It wasn't what we found. It turns out his grandfather's father stored away this bronze idol of a goat. How his crowd of listeners deflated at the grand reveal made Naruto's laughter resume anew. Yeah, your expressions are pretty much how the wife looked. Well, up until the realization turned into a murderous mutiny. Atalanta bumped her elbow into Naruto's ribs with the start of a smirk inching onto her lips. I bet you loved every moment of the chaos. Don't deny it. I know you too well for that, Naruto. I have to agree with Atalanta on this one, Naruto. You're a bright young man, but under your sunny disposition, you're an agent of chaos. Naruto's reply was delayed by the arrival of a smiling Leto and how she pilled onto Atalanta's assertions. I deny nothing, but I won't confirm anything either. Paying little mind to the faux innocent look Naruto tried pulling off, Artemis focused on the grouped gaggle of warrior women. The time for rest is over, girls. Get ready for our afternoon trials. Remember, any warrior can be defeated by complacency. The finely trained warriors snapped into working order in 2 seconds flat. Atalanta looked to do the same when she suddenly stopped and looked at Naruto. Stay for a moment, Naruto. There is someone I want you to meet. Her words got him to stop mid-stretch and nod his head. That was enough to send Atalanta off, leaving him alone with the mother and daughter. The divine trio lingered a silent heartbeat before Artemis cleared her throat. I have training to oversee. Artemis paused for a fraction of a moment to address Naruto. And it was nice meeting you, Naruto Omikami. Before Naruto had the chance to formulate a response, Artemis was gone. Her expedited exit left her mother behind to sigh at her antics. Leto should have known her hard-headed daughter wouldn't be easily swayed from her overzealous vows. Don't mind her haste. She has always been a girl on the go. Tucking his hands behind his spiky locks, Naruto nodded. He understood that feeling. It was one he often found lodged in his own gut. Nothing to worry over. I know what that feels like. The soul of a wanderer isn't easily contained. Some people are meant to move. We can do more that way. His response spurred some scheme, but before Leto could unleash her plot, Atalanta returned with her dear friend Callisto a step behind. Naruto, I want you to meet my friend, Callisto. Callisto, this is the man I told you about. The one who saw me through the Trojan War. Good to meet ya. Same here. The two shared a strong armed forearm grip and shake that played out while Atalanta explained why she brought Callisto to meet with Naruto. He is why I saw through the love goddess' stupid tricks. Thanks for that, by the way. Naruto shot a confused look toward his hunter friend but got a gesture that promised an explanation later. And I was hoping he'd do the same for you. The look Atalanta gave Naruto was one humming with earnest hope. Leto had an inkling of what was happening was personal and decided it was time to see herself out. Her presence here wasn't necessary. She trusted Naruto would take care of it. You don't need an old lady like myself for this. You three take care of your business. Surely, my daughter won't reject an extra set of hands. Callisto followed the Titan out with her eyes. But when she turned back to Naruto, she was taken aback by the severity in his eyes. It was like Naruto's golden pools were looking right through her soul. And frankly, it put Callisto on edge. She needed a lot of discipline to stop herself from sighing when Naruto finally broke his heavy silence. Put your fist out. The unsure huntress wanted to look at Atalanta for assurance but felt that breaking eye contact with the foreign god would be a mistake. Making her choice, Callisto balled her hand into a fist and extended it in front of her. With her taking the first step, Naruto established a proper connection when his fist pressed knuckle against knuckle to Callisto's fist. This bit of contact is all Naruto needed to tether himself to Callisto with his godly energies. Using this soulful link, Naruto saw everything in small flashes. The woman's past experiences screamed across his vision like shooting stars roaring through a night sky. In those precious moments, Naruto saw all he needed to make an informed decision. You have seen your share of pain, Callisto, daughter of Lysoun. But I must say, 50 brothers sounds like a lot. God or not, as an only child, Naruto could never imagine himself running around with a family that large. How did you? Callisto was understandably frazzled hearing Naruto bring up things he shouldn't know about. What prevented her question was the emergence of a glow wrapped around her flesh. Having seen nothing like it, Callisto was mesmerized by the sheet of luster following her arms as she waved them about at random. What is this? Naruto waited patiently for Callisto's attention to return to him. He was all too happy to explain what was happening. I wanted to help shoulder some of your burden. Atalanta speaks on your behalf, and it's well deserved from what I saw. That glow you saw was my blessing to you. Call it clarity. No scheme will fool you if you remain true to your core values. This is my promise to you. Callisto stared at Naruto, genuinely at a loss for words. Throughout her life, the hunter learned that men were dangerous. Her father and brothers were horrible examples of men's cruelty, especially with their abhorrent treatment of women. Callisto discovered this the hard way, when one of her 50 brothers thought he could have his way with her. Her brother learned what pain was after she left him broken. Ever since, Callisto had been a faithful follower of Artemis. Now, here she stood, offered a kindness from a god of all beings. She had no idea how to react. And it showed on her gobsmacked face. That and Callisto's struggle to find the right words. I don't know what to say. Rather than make the woman struggle through her fraying emotions, Naruto settled things with an honest response. You're welcome, Callisto. I was happy to help. Any potential for more conversation stopped when the upper half of Artemis' body peeked into the tent. Her wavy red hair pooled around her silver eyes as a contemplative look weighed across her face. Are you two coming? Everyone is waiting for you. Resembling a spooked deer, Callisto wheeled around with wide eyes. Her thoughts were so scrambled that her spatial awareness suffered as a result. She decided training was just what she needed while she tried making sense of everything. Right away, Lady Artemis. Callisto ambled into the distance like a woman in a trance. She might have forgotten about Naruto, but not Atalanta. She mouthed a thank you for the both of them before slipping around Artemis in the doorway. This left the sun and moon alone in a semi-awkward silence. Naruto was moving to take his leave when Artemis surprised him by speaking up. Do you have a moment to speak? Naruto's furrowed brow eased over into his customary sunny smile. It was more natural for him than walking around with a frown or a scowl. Yeah, no problem. Did you need something? When I look at you, I see something I don't understand. Your actions and reasoning. It doesn't make sense to me. I think it's best that I get an explanation from the source. A shimmering veil of pure power formed in front of Artemis' silver eyes, leaving the goddess with a glowing gaze that silently emphasized how seriously she was taking this conversation. If I find out you are lying to me, there won't be anywhere on the planet for you to hide. Do we understand each other? Taking her threat with enough grace to show he wasn't taking her lightly, Naruto's sunshine-crowned head bobbed as he stared fully into the divine archer's soulful silver eyes. I'll answer what I can, but there are some things I can't talk about. What I do say will be the truth. I can promise you that much. Is that acceptable? Artemis took her time and scoured Naruto's demeanor for any sign of deceit. If he planned on fooling her, she'd know his intentions now. She found nothing that gave her reason to doubt the man, so she begrudgingly cut the flow of power that made her eyes glow in the first place. I don't understand what you stand to gain by helping those like Atalanta or Callisto. That also includes my mother, so my first question is, why? There has to be a reason his kindness extends to women. Men always have ulterior motives when it comes to women. If it's what I think, he won't leave this camp the way he came. From another pantheon or not. No one takes advantage of my mom. Despite the strength of her emotion, Artemis didn't let her thoughts show. If Naruto gave her the wrong answer, she wanted her righteous vengeance to surprise him. Catching him by surprise would reduce any chance Naruto had of fighting back. Naruto remembered those three and the many more he had the chance to help, and he smiled gently. Those are the ones you know about, but I've also assisted old men with their health. Children with the passing of a loved one. And people of all genders with pressures of life. His smile turned into embarrassment. The same response the god with golden, black-tipped hair came up with when his charitable acts were highlighted. Whether good or bad, I can't turn away when I see someone in need. That is who I am. Artemis didn't say anything, not at first. But when she did, it wasn't the nicest of replies. However, her words were honest, something Naruto appreciated. There are many who would call that foolish. Most of my family included. The title of fool is something I'd gladly wear if it means I can help people who desperately need it. The things I do aren't for recognition. I help people of all kinds because it's the right thing. These powers of mine don't make me feel some sense of superiority, Artemis. If anything, I feel obligated to make their lives easier. Unlike the other gods, Naruto saw little reason to extract tribute or demand worship from those he assisted. His ego wasn't so bloated that he needed honeyed words to make himself feel good. And Naruto was more than happy to work himself to the bone to get stronger. If he somehow turned out like some of the gods sitting on Olympus, arrogant and lost in their own power, then he'd ask his adoptive mother to strike him down. Why go so far for someone you don't know? Your help could do more harm than good if they use it for selfish desires. Artemis knew godly intervention could do more harm than good. To hear Naruto admit he risked that chance often felt irresponsible. Naruto took the veiled criticism in stride with a nod of his head. He hated the possibility, but there was every chance his generosity would blow up in his face someday. Yes, he was a god, but gods weren't infallible beings. He could make mistakes. When that day arrives, I'll do what I must, but I can't let a chance stop me. I won't let it stop me from doing what I think is right. Circling back to the first question, Naruto opened his eyes and smiled with the strength of his conviction. Who cares if I don't know them? A stranger isn't worth less. Not to me. A friend or a random person, I want to help both. Artemis finally understood why she was developing a smidgen of respect for this man despite wanting nothing to do with him or any man in general. As much as she didn't want to admit, she and Naruto were similar at a base level. While she occasionally gave into fits of rage, Artemis tried to show compassion, trust, and honesty to those worthy, whereas Naruto wanted to see the best in everyone. Mother probably already realized this, which is why she brought Naruto here in the first place. I bet Atalanta also knew, but at least she is kind enough to keep her suspicions to herself. Artemis mulled over the options available, and one thing became clear. If I let him leave without giving him a chance, Mother won't let it drop. Better get this over with. Would you like to stay and watch our training? Naruto took his surprise and turned it into a blink before he beamed at the crimson-haired hunter. Naruto hopped from bough to bough, allowing fresh air to crash against his smiling face. Being out in the wild like this, where he could jump across the trees, was what he lived for. Feeling the spring air and tasting the sunlight, the golden-eyed sun deity smiled from ear to ear. He felt free. Free from the responsibility of godhood and all the troubles that plagued humanity. Part of him wanted to keep this peace to himself, but Naruto knew that eventually, he needed to return to the world outside this forest. Stop thinking about the future. Stay in the moment, Naruto. Enjoy the here and now before it disappears forever. This forest is beautiful, savor that beauty. What he loved most was the harmony of it all, coexistence at its simplest, most pure form. Everything from the fiercest predator to the most inconspicuous single-cell organism had a pivotal job. And these assorted roles meshed to create a thriving, healthy forest. It was life at its finest. Naruto smiled with a knowing glint tucked away in his glimmering gold eyes. And a silver arrow flew toward him with a sonic twang. As effortlessly as lifting his hand, Naruto snagged the soaring arrow out of the air before its glinting silver tip found his eye. Sparing the arrow a glance, the mostly blonde man chuckled as he twirled the projectile around his fingers. He loved the chances he had to mess with the headstrong Greek huntress. You caught me pretty quick this time around, Tsuki-chan. I was sure I could hide for another 5 minutes. The huntress maiden joined Naruto, but not without an annoyed huff directed at the blonde, a simple jump away. He was so annoying with his stable of silly names. For better or worse, Artemis did have some of her father's temper in her. How many times must I demand that you cease calling me by that blasted name? Naruto held his chin with a showy hum. After he spent a moment thinking, he grinned a cheeky Cheshire smile. I lost count over the last few decades. Honestly, I don't think your insistence is working out. Naruto's grin grew by leaps and bounds when he saw Artemis reach behind her with a threatening glower. The Shinto kami took his Greek counterpart's threat with a grain of salt. It wasn't a new promise of harm, but seeing how Artemis failed to follow up any of her proclamations with an actual attempt, he figured he was safe from becoming the goddess, pincushion. What's a good-natured threat or two between friends? Perhaps an arrow in your skull would help jog your errant memory, Naruto. Steely determination glimmered vividly in the redhead's moonlit eyes, a hearty showcase of her determination to test her practical solution. It wouldn't be easy, but Artemis loved a good challenge. They kept her skills sharp. Far from convinced, Naruto met her predatory glare with a mellowed look of peaceful joy. You wouldn't do that to me. You love me too much for something like that, Tsuki-chan. Despite how many times you deny our unique friendship, Tilda. Artemis visibly deflated in on herself, forfeiting her false front of fury to massage the bridge of her nose. She might have mumbled her statement, but Naruto heard her plenty fine. You're too much like my idiot brother for me to even consider thinking your presence is enjoyable. Her tone was one of someone who dealt with a massive amount of suffering through annoyance. Looking visibly affronted by her comment, Naruto bristled and pointed the arrow back at Artemis with an accusatory glare hidden in his glowing golden eyes. You take that back. Your family will sleep with anything that has a pulse. I most certainly do not. The sad reality was that the virgin huntress had no choice but to agree with Naruto. Her godly family was free with their sexual tendencies. And that was putting it tastefully. HMH, you have a point. I hate when you're right. That means something has gone wrong. Terribly wrong. You hate me being right because it means you were wrong. Which happens a lot when it comes to me and you. Naruto saw what came next before it happened. That's why he was already stepping off the tree and plummeting to the forest floor, laughing his whole way down. Damn you. Get back here. The huntress took off hot on Naruto's trail. Despite lagging behind for a split second, Naruto was nowhere in sight when Artemis' feet touched the ground. Predatory silver eyes scanned the area with frightening intensity before she correctly deduced Naruto was in her shadow. But by spinning around, Artemis opened herself up to having her forehead prodded by her grinning counterpart. Get back where? How about you catch me first? Try to keep up, huntress. And with that, He was gone with a cackle, leaving only a light fluttering wind behind. I love when the prey runs. An air of excitement wrapped around Artemis like a cloak as she reached for the arrow Naruto left in the dirt. Makes catching them all the more satisfying. Gone on the end of a silver streak, Artemis went on the hunt. Together, the two speeding presences began a high-stakes game of cat and mouse. Dueling streaks of gold and silver powered through the forest. Sometimes, the golden blur overtook the silver. Other times, the silver streak had the lead. The only beings privileged to this show were the animals of the forest, who got pulled to the feeling emanated by the wilderness maiden and the harmonious sun. Caught in between the two competitive deities happened to be an unlucky tree, which absorbed a well-grouped bunch of 3 arrows from the huntress, weapon of choice, reverberating from the impact and sending leaves fluttering to the ground. Their competitive warpath blasted across a lake, causing the serene blue surface to rupture upward with a dull roar. Hundreds of gallons of water crashed down seconds later. The sudden and violent explosion of water sent a curious group of dryads back into their homes before they got soaked through their leaf-made dresses. Using a break in their grappling to her advantage, Artemis slipped back into the forest. She took her chance, falling on Naruto from above with her bow dropping like a club. But when it made contact with Naruto's head, he burst into a cloud of smoke. Before she could clear it from her eyes, Artemis had her legs swept out from under and hit the ground with a grunt. Blurry eyes opened to see the shape of a hand. I hate your clones. The gloves came off when that first arrow took flight. Mutual understanding flowed between the two gods, and their hands locked, allowing Naruto to hoist Artemis back to her feet. With Artemis back on her feet, Naruto grinned. You've been getting a lot faster. Although his tone had a bit of levity in it, his praise was honest. Artemis smirked at the admission sent her way. To hear her efforts be acknowledged played at the pride all gods possessed inherently, herself included. Maybe it meant a little more coming from her strange friend, but she'd keep that to herself. I can't catch my prey if I stay the same. The message was that Naruto was her target. Naruto was plenty pleased to hear Artemis making strides to go further. Advancement wasn't something every god or goddess had the drive for. Complacency was shockingly common among the divine. Keep at it, and who knows? You might catch me one of these times, but I think it's time you get back to the hunters. We've been playing for hours at this point. Have you forgotten what time of year it is? Naruto's only reply, if it could be called that, was a blank stare that showed no comprehension. It nearly made Artemis slap a palm to her face and groan. It's the season where my hunters break into teams and go off on hunts without my supervision. Released from his fog of confusion, Naruto snapped his fingers with a grin on his lips. Oh yeah, that's right. Last time you were so worried for your newest hunters, you had gray hairs for 5 months. That was priceless. Oof. His humor earned Naruto a gut punch that doubled him over. Still breathing with a wheeze, Naruto had a little left in the tank. Ha. Yup. I'll let you relax then, Tsuki-chan. You deserve it. Will you join me on my hunt? Naruto froze in place after hearing Artemis' request. It wasn't meekly stated or said with hesitation. What shocked him was the fact she extended the invitation in the first place. Pick up your jaw, fool. If I can't trust you after a century, then there are very few I can trust. Shaking away his surprise, instead of serving a teasing barb at his red-headed friend, Naruto left her with a golden smile that exuded warmth. It'd be a genuine honor. What are we hunting and where? There was a time for jokes and this was not one of them. He knew how highly Artemis held her sacred hunts, and treating them with any less honor would be an insult Naruto had no plans of committing. I have heard whispers about an indestructible beast roaming the wilds of Asia Minor. I plan on crossing the Aegean to see if this boar lives up to its reputation. The potential of this hunt had the divine archer's ichor at a boil, so was the strength of her teeming excitement. Imagining such a beast had her fingers trembling with excitement. An impervious pig. Naruto raised his brow in wonder. It sounded like something divine, or worse, a dangerous monster capable of ruining many innocent lives. You have it tracked then. We should take care of this as fast as possible. Artemis shook her head, wobbling her wavy wall of red hair into a slow, swaying motion. No, I wish to hunt it down methodically, like a true hunter should. Using her godly powers for such a task would cheapen the hunt as a whole. Sounds good to me. I'll follow your lead. That night, Aegean coast. Two powerful beings gathered around a modest campfire. Sounded like the start of a bad joke, but it's where Naruto and Artemis found themselves. The flame's meager orange glow alighted them on an otherwise starless night. It was a peaceful flow, the crackles of the fire mixed with the gentle swell of the sea's tide, rolling on 100 feet below. But even their time of peace wasn't wasted being idle. Naruto sat on his knees with both hands pressed together in prayer in front of his grandfather's prized weapon, which Naruto buried blade deep in the soil. Likewise, Artemis had her favorite bow out for an overdue polishing of its sacred, wooden body. Usually, cleaning her weapon provided a peace of mind, but not this time. By the look on her face, the moon goddess seemed to be weighing something mentally before she judged it acceptable to bring it up with Naruto. Can you share what it was like for you growing up? Her question broke the ambiance surrounding the pair. One golden pool peered around a Menenuhoko and through the fire separating them. Naruto stayed that way for a breath before he eased into a comfortable position with his legs stretched out. A question for a question wasn't considered the best form of manners, but this time it was necessary. How much do you know about my people's pantheon? Artemis placed her bow on her thighs and leveled her glowing eyes on Naruto's stern front. Silver beams of moonlight spiraled through the dark sky, pulled toward Artemis' divine presence in the world. I know the Shinto once existed in this plane, but not much else. Father forbids us from speaking openly about the other pantheons, so most of us let them fade from our memories. Naruto swallowed the bitter smile that threatened his face because of Artemis' unintentionally painful choice of words. Long ago, Lady Chaos came to my ancestors with an offer. She offered them a new realm. One untouched by other gods, a fresh start with no threat of divine war on the horizon. It was a dream for many. But sadly, dreams don't last forever. The mortals living in this new realm were like demigods multiplied 10 times over. They possessed an internal source of power called chakra. Chakra allowed them to manipulate the elements, cast illusions, and ascend the limitations of mortal strength. They called themselves shinobi, a people who made the word mercenary and formed into a race over occupation. Naruto knew these devout warriors through relayed information, but his view on shinobi wasn't positive. Death and destruction seemed like the rule and not the exception in the realm of elements, and Naruto hated it. Naruto's sudden revelation about a race of enhanced warriors gave Artemis reason to pause. These men and women, are they? No, none of these shinobi, fearsome as they are, have the power to reliably puncture, let alone cross the boundaries of separated realms. You can rest easy on that. And he couldn't be more thankful that was the case. The idea of ninja-branded mass destruction running around unchecked felt like his worst nightmare. But I didn't mention them to spread concern. I brought them up because their power filled shinobi with pride, arrogance, and ambition. The typical pursuits of men. Artemis broke her silence with a twinge of derisiveness. Different realms, but corruption knew no such boundary. It was a disappointing but expected truth. No, it's not only males. Men and women were both warriors in my family's realm. Theirs was a society built on merit. Unfortunately, this helped create a belief in their unique gifts over faith. The process was slow, but over thousands of years, the damage became irreversible. Our most influential gods and goddesses held on longer than the others, but the end came for them all the same. Naruto distracted himself from his sadness with the swirling flames of the camp's fire. Artemis found herself victim to the sadness swelling from within her soul. If not for Naruto, her mother wouldn't have the goddess shook it off and offered a kind word to try and encourage Naruto. Your mother must have possessed an incredible will. My mother passed away shortly after my birth. What I know of her story is secondhand information given by my guardian. But yeah, she was a strong woman who understood the importance of harmony between all things. It's a lesson I will spend my life trying to understand. Naruto decided to turn away from talking about his mother. The awkwardness of sympathy turning into pity wasn't something he was sure he'd handle well. Nope. Not a bit. Not a chance. Artemis' furrowed brow deepened against her forehead, showing how her curiosity was piqued. Can you elaborate? I'm afraid I don't understand your meaning. That's not to say she didn't want to understand her fellow divine being. Naruto plucked a single strand of grass out of the soil. He held it aloft before dropping it. The mostly blonde man watched the wind send the swirling blade of green into the flames, turning its verdant green into a charred black gnarl. Take the chief three deities, for example. Hades, Poseidon, and Zeus are three men synonymous with stories of destruction, death, and fear. The people shake in fear at the mere mention of their names. She couldn't stop the flash of emotion Naruto's words triggered, manifesting in a pair of flickering silver eyes. True or not, Zeus was still her father, whom she loved dearly. It's precisely why her cordial reply came out strained with her repressed feelings. Not all of us are like the stories. I agree with you, and not all of my pantheon's gods were beacons of benevolence. I bring those three up because they are your big three. For better or worse. Naruto paused and let his carefully selected words take some of Artemis' edge off. Compared to my mother or Uncle Susanoo, who promoted unison and protected mortals from threats beyond them, I see a vast chasm in my culture and yours in our views on duty to our home. Artemis watched Naruto from over the fire, looking at him but not truly seeing him. Her response was almost as quiet as sizzling kindling. You remind me a lot of Selene. A ghostly apparition of her mentor flickered into existence over Naruto's shoulder, making the redhead smile. This wasn't the first time Artemis drew a comparison between the two different people. However, it was the first time she shared it with Naruto. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting Selene. Is being like them a good thing or a bad one? Naruto had his guess based on Artemis' tone, but he was better off avoiding blind assumptions. It was better to know where he stood without the exaggeration of flowery prose. Delayed by memories recent and old, the Moon Archer's nod came out sluggishly. Artemis' fond expression came alongside a soft smile on her fair face. Selene is the Titaness who stewarded the moon when the Titans held power and is one of the few Titans to support the Olympians' rebellion. She's teaching me about the intricacies of the moon's responsibility to nature. Unlike countless others, Selene focused on her duties outside of simple monster slaying. Yes, Artemis enjoyed her hunts, but she was more than a simple exterminator. What began as bubbling respect became outright verbal praise courtesy of the Omikami. Perhaps one day he could meet the woman himself. Until then, he'd hold Artemis's words to heart. She sounds like a smart woman. We need more minds like hers out there thinking about the bigger picture. The planet would be a better place. Naruto's earnest response brought a rarely seen joking gleam into Artemis' silver soul pools. You're incorrect as usual, Naruto. Women are always right with smart advice. It's men who need to listen better. Her joke earned the goddess a joyous laugh from Naruto. If you'll excuse me, I have the moon's orbit to lead through the night. I shall rejoin you when the sun rises in the morning. Sending Artemis off with a wave, Naruto took to his solitude. He fell back into the grass with both hands behind his head. Two golden eyes looked into the tapestry of stars strobing against the dark fabric of the sky. I should make another visit to Ka-san's homelands. If beasts like Yamata no Orochi are lurking there, who knows what else might be happening. I'll visit after this hunt. Until then, he laid back and watched the moon illuminate the night sky with its brilliance, enjoying his peaceful night. Two baleful red beads looked over a forested plain, searching for threats and finding nothing. The beast connected to those bloodied eyes lowered its head with a booming snort. The bestial boar weighed a ton with a whip-like tail punctuated by a plume of needle-sharp hairs. But everything in its arsenal paled to the pair of tusks coming out of its lower jaw. Both those sharp protrusions were 3 feet long with a hook-like curve near their base. Pale white and gleaming, deadly in the sun's light. The boar looked terribly out of place compared to the world around it, but that didn't diminish how visually impressive the beast stood. So was the pull of its presence that Naruto felt obligated to pay the creature its due respect. I expected to find an impressive beast, but this is more than I imagined. If this beast weren't causing havoc, I'd be inclined to leave it be. The hunter had a different mind entirely. Artemis had her deciphering gaze already working hard, doing what was natural for them, picking apart potential weak points in her prey. Here it was. The final moment of adrenaline-filled angst before she fell upon her prey. She loved it. She lived for it. The danger of a beast makes the hunt all the more worthy. If we hit it and run circles around it from 2 sides, we should be able to wear the pig down without risking a nasty surprise. Thoughts. Usually, Naruto was all for a good fight, but he wasn't so careless as to fight with the full extent of his flames in a highly flammable forest. The last thing he wanted was to turn this place to ash because he got too excited. It was best he try and play it smart. Artemis mulled over a response long enough for her and Naruto to watch a second boar stomp through the underbrush. The unaccounted for addition of another pig forced Artemis to offer an amended plan. We should separate them. Divide and conquer. One apiece works for me. I will go in first and separate the two. Use the surprise from my entrance to strike at the enemy. The solar-lunar combination shared a nod before Naruto silently leapt through the forest, building momentum with each bouncing spring that took him forward into the canopy of green foliage that swallowed the blonde's presence easily. I have to thank Artemis. Our games of tag have my agility and reflexes razor sharp. His thoughts came with a smile as leaves and tree branches alike passed him by until the light of day became more prevalent as the tree leaves thinned out. Finally, at the forest's threshold, Naruto burst from the tree line with his foot leading the charge. His soul slammed into the leftmost beast's tusk with a crunch before the golden sun god's dynamic entry sent god and beast ripping deeper through the wilds. Their path culminated with a thrashing beast lying on its flank in a bank of wet brown mud while Naruto rose from the waist-deep shallows of the river. Water droplets ran down the determined lines of his face. His clothes were heavy from the river's water, but Naruto's sharp gaze stayed glued to the beast. It didn't show on his face, and yet, Naruto was baffled to find the boar unharmed apart from a slight crack in the base of its tusk. Naruto felt the weight of expectation coming from the treasured spear on his back. However, Naruto resisted the temptation. He refused to use his grandfather's almighty spear to solve all his problems. He'd rely on the skills he earned through the years of training. A mixing of light and fire coated the blonde's hands, arming him with celestial white flames. Alright, big guy, let's see how much punishment that big body can take. SHHHRRRIIEEKK. Boar and God charged straight at each other, destined to clash until the final moment when Naruto diverted his path. He planted his foot on the creature's large skull, using the beast's attempt at goring him to springboard himself into the air. The beast countered by throwing a barrage of sharp hair needles at Naruto, which forced the blonde to burn the projectiles to ash before they turned him into a pincushion. A futile attack for damage but good enough to slow Naruto. The pig had the time it needed to line itself up with where Naruto would land. A clone burst into existence and shoved the original through the air. The additional pair of hands allowed Naruto to land on the swine's arch-shaped spine like the foul beast was a prized mount. HYAH. Naruto's flames burned bright as he slammed his clamped hands down on the pig's head once, twice, thrice, and so on. In failing to take down the beast, Naruto needed to throw himself off the pig's back as it went into a roll. God or not, he didn't have any plans on being crushed under 2 tons of monster meat. Shaking the dirt out of its brown coat, the bestial boar viewed his godly foe rising and instinctually rushed to gore the bright blonde. Its tusk hit home, spearing the shocked sun right through his gut. Victory turned into pain when Naruto's body exploded into a cloud of burning ash that swallowed the screeching swine in a bloom of murky black. The beast broke through its ash cage only to be met by Naruto and his next strike. His weapon of choice, a self-contained vortex of churning flames. Rasengan. Driving the beast down into the earth, the force released from Naruto's attack created an explosion of light. When it faded, Naruto was alarmed to see a ball-shaped indentation but no other damage on his foe. Fuck. Naruto left the stunned beast behind. He raced toward his lunar counterpart to see if her luck was any better. When he landed on the scene, the blonde found a scowling moon goddess facing down a boar stuck with many an arrow. But somehow bloodless. Looks like you're having as much luck as I am. I have done everything short of going into my divine form. The beast seems impervious to all forms of damage. At the very least, Naruto's appearance caused the nay indestructible beast to freeze in place wearily. It is annoying, I must admit. With the return of the second monster swine, the full complement of characters returned to the battlefield. Artemis needed but a second to pick out the crack of damage Naruto left on the pig's tusk. What's that? How'd you manage to pull that off? Naruto refrained from shrugging at her question. He didn't want to leave his guard down for a second. That was a bad habit he tried to avoid. Ether drilled the importance of it into his head the hard way during their training. That damage is literally from my first attack. Nothing else did anything but tick the thing off. What differentiated that strike from your other attacks? Artemis answered her question a breath later, showing her inquiry was more rhetorical than genuine. Your first attack was the only one you scored when the two creatures were in the same vicinity. You're telling me we can't hurt these things if they're apart? Once the momentary disbelief passed and Naruto thought about it, Artemis' take made a lot of sense. The proof was looking them in the face in the form of two pissed-off pigs. Do you have any better ideas? The curtness of her reply showed how little Artemis joked when she was on the hunt. No. I'm ready to roll. Need a better angle. Upon receiving Artemis' consent, he put his hands down and motioned for the goddess to step on his basketed hands. With a mighty shove up, he threw her high into the sky, drawing the attention of their shared enemies. Naruto dashed forward, taking advantage of the pigs looking into the sky at the suddenly airborne Artemis. His momentum packed an extra level of force into his naturally powerful punches, and this time, the sun god felt their snouts shift when his knuckles crashed into the swine. And based on their shrieks, the two boars finally felt the pain. Their agony only worsened when Artemis struck from above. 3 arrows stabbed their way into the backs of both beasts. It didn't kill them, but their thickened blood leaked from their wounds while the divinity of her arrowheads seeped into their bodies, making them sway in place, vulnerable for the first time. Artemis continued her practiced assault by dropping to the ground. Her bowstring bent back and released with an audible twang. An arrow 4 times longer than her typical arrows, pierced through the left flank of the nearest beast and continued through to the second pig. Chained together, the pigs struggled as long tendrils of gooey vinage came out of the ground and locked them in place. Naruto saw his chance and didn't hesitate. He formed a wind blade around his hand, and with a swift stroke, the golden-eyed god beheaded the beast on the right, dropping its blood-spewing head to the ground with a wet thump in front of its still twitching body. By comparison, Artemis' kill was much more clean. A single arrow through her prey's brain is all it took to drop her target. He used the momentary break to assess the damage. He had to sigh as he put his hand against his shoulder and rolled his strained joint. Hitting those pigs felt like punching a mountain. Looking over at Artemis from the corner of his eye, Naruto smiled cheerfully. Looks like my first real hunt was more than we bargained for. If they're all like this, I would have been in your shadow much sooner, Tsuki-chan. Artemis snorted at his joking tone and stowed her bow along the length of her back. Thoughts plagued with the troubles of what these beasts represented, Artemis had some thoughts to share. The kind of magic put on these creatures. Is this on purpose or an unforeseen mutation? In our world, it can be tough to say what's accidental and what is on purpose. That was the best he felt he could do, given that Naruto didn't have the answers Artemis sought. Whether or not it comforted her, Naruto couldn't say, but it was honest. The blunt dose of honesty got a frown from the goddess but not necessarily a disagreement. Regardless, I plan on tracking down their den. I need to find anything I can about this phenomenon. Are you coming with me? I appreciate the offer, but I have to decline. There are some things I want to do in my mother's ancestral home. Under normal circumstances, Naruto was all for spending time with his friend. The back and forth he and Artemis shared was an endless source of entertainment for him. What are you plotting? Naruto merely smiled and waved before he vanished with a golden flash. His sudden departure drew a jealous scowl from the one he left behind. Artemis would have done almost anything to go to the Far East and experience their world for herself, but unfortunately, Zeus forbade Greek intrusions that far from their homeland. Good luck out there, Tsuki-chan. Let's do this again soon. The cheerfulness of her sunny friend lingered in the air long after he left, making Artemis hide a smile. Though she wasn't the biggest fan of the nickname, the huntress respected Naruto's dedication to using it, even if she protested it publicly. That idiot.